Hey guys, welcome back. This is a story about what if Naruto went to the world of One Piece. Naruto's age has passed him by as his time is over. Now he attempts to seek out a place for himself in the new world, and it's bigger than he ever figured it to be. Will be epic in length. Before we start, thank you for all of the support, it really means a lot to me. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and leave a like. You can suggest a Naruto fanfiction with a link in the comments if you want me to read it. And check the description for the creator of this great fanfic and support them for making this fanfic. So let's start. Chapter 39. Point of no return. Backstage in the human auction house, if Soren had hair it would have been standing up on end after what he was feeling looking at the old man that had just yanked his own explosive slave collar off. Johnny, Yosaku. Get thee away from him now. He's dangerous. If Soren, who was willing to pick a fight with Don Quixote da Flamingo, shouted aloud that someone was dangerous, then everyone in attendance had better take heed of the warning. But just as both swordsmen jumped away, they found that the moment they had turned away to pay momentary attention to Soren, the old man had deposited himself right behind where he seemed to know they would retreat to. Oh please, why do you young people have to be so dramatic about everything? If I wanted to crush you too, the old man said, setting his hands on their shoulders and surprising them at his tight grip, I already would have. He finished with a smile on his face. Taking those words as a threat and having long since learned to never take a smile as a good sign of anything, Johnny quickly unsheathed his sword and swung at the man's head and neck, but by the time he had finished the rotation for his swing the man was gone again. Fast, he gasped out, he's that much faster than me. I don't want to fight you brats. Soren, Johnny, Yosaku, and Byron all looked up on the top of a slave cage with a giant of a man within it to find the old man sitting on top of it, looking down at them, still smirking the whole way. But could you help an old man out and free the last one here? Sorry old man, Soren said, keeping a watchful eye on said old man. Even though he said that he didn't want to fight, if he made a move it probably wouldn't be a very long fight either way. We don't help strangers just like that. Johnny elbowed Soren in the side and whispered to him loudly, what are you talking about? We help strangers all the time. A glare in return from Soren shut him up as steam from his acid burning rose from his skin. Oh, and never mind then. A carefree laugh merely came from the old man who adjusted the glees on his face. Well, in that case let's not remain strangers any longer then, shall we? I'll introduce myself first. My name is Silvers Rayleigh. The jaws of all of the present Foxhound pirates dropped and they stared up at Rayleigh with bug eyes, not really believing that they were really looking at one of the most legendary pirates ever in the form of that old man. But the look in his eyes of pure confidence and experience of things none of them could even fathom said otherwise. If there was ever an example of being starstruck, that had to have been the moment. That would have been a banner example of such. Byron said, breaking the tense for everyone except Silvers Raleigh. Of course, silence between everyone. Well, this is turning out to be a pretty good day for me. How about the rest you guys? Bang. On stage of the human auction house, the place had been in a panic with the sudden arrival of Luffy crashing through a wall on a flying fish to interrupt the auction. But in trying to stop Luffy from causing trouble by his rushing the stage, Hatchin wound up being swung in the back by Charlos, who was celebrating at what he had just done, laughing in satisfaction as the other nobles in the building seemed happy that the fishman had been injured so gravely. I got the fishman. I caught my very own fishman. I got it myself, so it's free, right? Absolutely free. Ha ha ha. Luffy had stopped his rampage towards the stage to turn towards the celebrating man, stalking up the stairs towards him slowly until his arm was grabbed by one of Hatchin's. Straw Hat, don't, he said, weakly as he lost blood steadily. You can't, it was my own fault. You promised us, that even if someone was swung right in front of your eyes that you wouldn't fight the Tenryubito. This is what I deserve anyway. I was a pirate, I did evil things. I just never meant for things to turn out this way. I just wanted to make things up to Nami if only a little bit. But I always just screw things up. I'm so sorry. Tears were in his eyes at this point as he pleaded with Luffy not to do anything rash. From the top of the stairs at the entrance point of the building, the doors were thrown open with several Marines flying inside all over the place. Don't let him get any further. He can't be allowed inside. He's a monster. Those cries were cut off when the Marines claiming such were smashed hard enough to be thrown through the walls of the auction area, unconscious and quite battered but alive. A human auction house. From the open doors, Naruto walked in and looked around with a hard expression in his eyes as they panned over the lot of people there for purchasing slaves. How about you try to enslave me? How much would I go for? From the top balcony, Nojiko, Miss Valentine, Murat, and Perona looked over the edge of the railing to see Naruto walking in like a tiger surrounded by hostile prey. Ha! Nojiko said, feeling a bead of sweat on her brow. It's like a standoff or something. As he walked down the stairs, Naruto looked past St. Charlos and over at Luffy, who seemed quite heated, as well as the downed and injured Hatchin. You. Aren't you one of the Arlong pirates from Nami-chan's hometown? Even Uzumaki Naruto too. Hatchin said with quite a bit of effort. Hey, you're Straw Hat's friend too, aren't you? Tell him to Saint. Shut up, you stupid fish. Charlos shouted at Hatchin, aiming his pistol and pointing it at the octopus fishman. You haven't shut your mouth even though I swow you, you're really getting on my nerves. His tirade stopped when Naruto walked past him, ignoring him completely and bumping his shoulder while ping to reach Hatchin's side. What? How could he just ignore someone of his stature? Naruto just kneeled down in front of the fishman that was once his enemy, staring into his eyes until apparently finding what he was looking for and smiling at him. You've been a good guy since all of the stuff that happened back on Kami Island, haven't you? This surprised many people there, including Hatchin himself, who all thought that Naruto was a total ripper of a human being. Hatchin then cringed as Naruto inspected his wound. Whoever swow us, this wouldn't kill an 8-year-old. Uzumaki. Hatchin grimaced in pain as his wound was prodded testingly by a man Umed to be the enemy that destroyed his entire crew of 50 plus. Why? You should want to kill me more than I want to hurt you. Naruto said calmly and brightly. If you don't, then I don't have a problem with you. And if you do, I don't care, because you're not trying anything on me now, and Luffy seems to trust you. That's all I need. Looking up at Luffy, Naruto nodded stiffly. This guy's going to be fine if we can get someone to him to help. I ain't a healer. A blood vessel appeared on Charlos's head in anger, staring at his shoulder where Naruto had barely come into contact with him. Rage in his eyes. Who do you think you are? You filthy insect. You think you can just walk past me? That you can make contact of any kind with me? You bow in my presence, you worm. Beg for forgiveness. He ordered, pointing his pistol at Naruto's back this time. Not even registering the man's presence, Naruto just kept trying to help Hatchin the best he could, using a kunai to dig the bullet out of the wound and getting a groan of pain from Hatchin. Oh come on, you big baby. You're supposed to be a big tough pirate, aren't you? You're just another of those squalid, filthy pirates, Charlos said, aiming the hammer of his pistol back while shakily aiming it with one hand at Naruto. Fine. If you love that inferior creature beside you so much, you can die along with it. From her seat nearby, Vivi had kept silent. This time it wasn't simply her resigning herself to her fate, it was in abject shock of how things were falling apart. Even when trying to take things as they came, things still fell out of control. And there was no way that any of this was going to end well. Her body didn't even give her the option of choosing otherwise. She let out an ear-rending scream. Naruto, no. However, Luffy had walked past Naruto and Hatchin up the stairs towards Charlos, not saying a word, just with a horridly angry expression on his face until he finally got close enough to deliver a good old-fashioned haymaker right to the bloated world noble's face. No stretching necessary, decking him hard enough to smash him through several rows of chairs behind. The entire M of rich people let out sounds of shock and terror, faces twisted in horror while Naruto just kept treating Hatchin, his own face devoid of smile altogether. I'm not a pirate hole. There wasn't anything funny about that guy to him. Luffy just stood in the same place, cracking his knuckles and looking around, waiting for someone to make something of what he had just done. He had been expressly warned that there would be trouble if he had done anything to a world noble. It was just too bad that when it came down to it he didn't care that much. Sorry everyone. I heard that if you deck one of these guys, a marine admiral's gonna show up with battleships too. Chalros Nisama. The female world noble shouted, standing up at the shock of seeing her older brother get hit. It had simply never happened before. The entire place was in full panic mode at this point, with everyone who had previously thought they were about to buy a slave rushing towards the doors to escape. An older man, dressed the same way as Charlos only he had gray hair, a beard, and wore sungles, stood up and glared hatefully at Luffy. How dare such a lowly peasant like yourself lay even a finger on my son? He shouted at Luffy, pointing his cane which doubled as a rifle at the young man. Do you have any idea what will happen to you if you rise against us? Against the descendants of the creators of this world. Before he could fire his weapon though, he found Vivi standing in front of him with her arms outstretched to block. I can't let you do that, Saint Roswald. They're my friends. I don't care. Property like you should not stand in the way of perfect ancestry. Bang. It didn't matter to the man one bit, and it didn't matter that Vivi was in his way as he instantly fired, intent on getting her out of his way one way or another. A puff of smoke enshrouded Vivi as the SWAT was fired. What the air you doing here, Vivi Heim? The smoke cleared to show Naruto shielding Vivi from the SWAT, his shoulder bleeding from taking the bullet. Vivi's eyes widened and started to quiver as she looked at Naruto. Were you with those guys? He asked her in a slightly strained voice, wincing at the wound in his arm. Get away from my son's new wife. Saint Roswald said again before reloading his weapon to fire again at Naruto. Not fast enough though, since Naruto moved swiftly, snatching the cane rifle out of his hands and smashing him in the face with it, sending blood flying and most definitely breaking quite a few facial bones. Well, to say the least, Naruto definitely popped the resin bubble around his head with that swing, and maybe popped his skull too because there was definitely a crack heard. Get out of my face. Father. The woman world noble cried in alarm as the man's body flew across the auditorium and smacked into the wall with an echoing audible thud, falling to crash through the seats in that part of the human auction house as well. Her eyes turned angrily towards Naruto, who tossed the cane away, its use no longer necessary. She gnashed her teeth together before loudly barking an order, summon the Marines and have them send an admiral. This will not stand. You and all of yours will die here. Sorry. Naruto said, not sounding very sorry at all about what he had just done, but nobody shoots at my princess. He then turned his gaze of scrutiny back to Vivi, who shirked slightly. Who needs to tell me just what she was doing here away from the whole crew and just what that guy meant by saying she was that noble guy's new wife? Before Vivi could try and explain anything, Miss Valentine drifted down with her umbrella from the balcony with the other foxhound pirate women holding onto her and landed right by them all. Don't be mad at Vivi, sweetie. If she hadn't gone with that guy, there would have been big trouble for us. She then looked around and laughed quite a bit, but there's big trouble anyway, so that's a moot point. In the middle of this conversation, the rest of the Straw Hat crew had arrived and happened to be fighting through the guards of the world nobles while people were scrambling to escape. Apparently this wasn't enough of an issue to stir Naruto or any of the girls, even though Luffy's crew now seemed to have a living skeleton with an afro as a member. A sigh came from Naruto before he locked eyes with Vivi and pointed intently at her. Don't ever do anything like that again. Stop trying to do stuff to protect us on your own. That's what teams are for in the first place, so that no one has to do anything like that. He had more of a lecture set and ready even in the calamity around them, but he was cut off when Vivi threw herself at him and hugged him, crying into his flak jacket. Ah geez, don't cry. I'm not really mad at you, it's just. It's not that, Vivi interrupted, with a sniffle. I thought I was really going to have to go with that man. Being a princess doesn't mean anything to a world noble. You still belong to my brother. The female world noble said, this little incident isn't going to change that. As a matter of fact, this all just made it worse for you for when you're obtained once more. And that won't take long. The admiral that is sent will turn this island upside down to take down you and that other crew of fools. The back wall on the stage then started coming down in a bubbling, melting mess until enough of it had been destroyed for the male members of the Foxhound Pirates to walk out from behind with Byron still with them. Old man Rayleigh, you're definitely coughing up some of that money you stole from this place to us. We did the real legwork here. We could fight over it if you'd like. Rayleigh replied, getting a quick shake of heads from the lot of them that elicited a loud laugh from him. That's what I figured, still got it. Crazy old bad guy. Johnny mumbled before seeing that they were standing right by a prison for the mermaid Kimi, and his eyes widened behind his sungles. Awesome. Mermaid. Without another bit of prompting, Johnny quick drew his sword and slashed the top of the watery prison off, more or less freeing her except for the slave collar. Okay Soren, do the rest so we can talk to a real-life mermaid. This is a great day. Before Soren could move forward to try and rid the mermaid of the collar his way, Rayleigh got there first and grabbed a hold of the collar, getting everyone that was paying attention to recoil in shock. Maybe that guy could take an explosion like what that collar would produce, but that mermaid didn't look even close to being tough enough to survive it. It was a moot point though, as Rayleigh ripped the collar off with absurd speed and threw it at some of the many armored guards in the room, causing it to explode on them instead. How productive. Seeming to not believe what he had done was impressive or was even a big deal at all, Rayleigh looked around the room until his gaze stopped on Luffy and a smirk came over his face. "Ah, I've been waiting quite a while to meet you, Monkey D. Luffy. You certainly have a knack for finding yourself in trouble." With her bonds cast off, a few of Luffy's crew members ran down fighting their way through the soldiers to try and reach Kimi and help her out of her predicament. "Soren, Johnny, Yosaku, get your S over here now," Naruto shouted across the room, getting all three men to shrug before they started heading towards him. Soren came to a stop though when he heard something that had his ears burning. It stopped those pirates. A man with long silver hair, loud gaudy clothes, a colorful top hat, star sungles, and a thick mustache shouted over the house microphone. The MC for the whole slave auctioning process shouted desperately, "That mermaid sold for 500 million. Mr. Doflamingo's shop has a reputation to keep up." He then stopped yelling when he felt a shadow of death standing behind him and turned to find Soren standing in front of him. "So this is Doflamingo's place, is it?" he asked in a threatening manner with an evil grin on his face. "Well, I think he's going to want to know all about these developments, don't you? I'd sure like to if I were him." Soren grabbed the man by the back of his neck like a disobedient puppy. "Let's call him." He then turned towards Naruto and the others and yelled towards them, "You guys get out of here, I'll catch up." The minute he heard the name of Doflamingo he was locked in on that and nothing else. Even the panic that Sabayati Archipelago was about to be thrown into didn't matter to him as he seemed to walk with the man to the back where his office in a Den Mushi was. "Soren." Naruto yelled at him again, only getting FPED off for his trouble. There are like 150 night guards blocking the way out. You get your back here and make a new exit for everybody," he shouted, ducking out of the way of a halberd swing to abusively kick his armored attacker away. "Kami, I hate armor." He took another guard's helmet right off after they missed a sword swing and headbutted the man right in the face, knocking him out. Yosaku could cut through metal. Naruto was skilled and enough of a juggernaut that armor didn't really matter in the end, and Miss Valentine could generate more than enough concussive force to turn armor into expensive tin bodysuits, but the others weren't aptly suited to trying to best a large group of knights. Byron simply avoided the attacks of the knights with what seemed to be a practiced grace of his footwork, almost like a dance of nobility. "Naruto-sama, the rest of the slaves in the back have been freed," he said calmly as he leaned out of the way of a sword strike and watched Naruto cover him by blasting the knight with a Rasengan. "Cool," Naruto said, pulling Nojiko out of the way of another attack from the persistent knights, but it served to be unnecessary to really ease her in the end when she used her Swaugen to produce a harsh blast of wind that sent the guard flailing away. "Can we tear this place down and leave now?" His question was cut off when a still pressurized feeling filled the entire building, getting everyone to stop fighting. What the? It felt like raw defeat intent just without the feeling of certain death behind it. It was strong enough to utterly paralyze Vivi and force the entirety of the armored guard unconscious. Murat also fell victim to sucking to the feeling, fainting on her feet only to be caught and kept from hitting the ground. Her eyes fluttered open and a blush appeared on her face as she saw who her savior was. "Oh. High Law." The laid-back pirate and surgeon gave Murat a calm smile and set her back on her feet, still holding onto her hands. "Hey there, beautiful. Your captain needs to get thee out of here now like my crew is. Whatever admiral comes here is going to tear this place up. No pirate with a bounty is really safe for this one. I'm not a pirate Murat palmed her face at Naruto's boisterous cry that was seemingly instinctive at this point. "Yeah, Naruto-sama isn't a pirate, but I don't think that matters. Thank you for caring. I don't really care about your crew to be honest," Law stated bluntly, getting the other foxhound pirate women to wonder why in the Murat seemed to be swooning over the guy. "But you're cute, and a doctor has to be pretty tough or lucky to get this far on the Grand Line, trust me. It's impressive. Hey, let go of my beloved," Yosaku shouted at Law, sprinting up to him with Kibikirabucho on his shoulder. "You can't touch Murat like that." "I can't even touch Murat like that. What the man?" Law just kept his smirk on his face as Murat addressed the power swordsman. "Well, he's got my permission too." Law's just cute, and he's cool. And you're not. She said reluctantly. That was like a swat to the heart for Yosaku, who dropped to his knees with a stricken look on his face. Murat fought the urge to pet him like a dog, as that would have made things worse. Law felt the need to comment though, keep your head up, man. It'll be alright. Looking at the doors, Law saw a few members of his crew beckoning him to leave. I'll see you around sometime. Maybe in the new world. He asked Murat, getting a shy nod from her before he ran off. In Yosaku's mind there was a little something new going on though. Got to kick that guys eventually, he thought to himself, as beating Zoro to measure his worth as a swordsman was no longer his top goal in mind. True love is as rocky as the roughest shore. And nothing worth earning is easy. However, in the middle of his heroic inner monologue, he was yanked to his feet by Naruto and slapped once to get him out of his trance. Oi. Come on. Stop spacing out and let's roll. We've been in here for too long and this place is totally surrounded. The rest of our crew, the Straw Hats, the Kid Pirates, Law's Heart Pirates, and that old man with the weird defeat intent already went outside. The slap woke Yosaku back up and he glared at Naruto with a red handprint on the side of his face. Well, why didn't you get me up sooner? What were you waiting here for then? He noticed that Naruto had strange, ripple pattern eyes and orange pigment around them. Oh. That. Come to think of it, that slap did hurt a lot more than it should have for as slow as it was going. Why? This. Naruto said, as he clapped his hands together and held them in place. Now go catch up, I'm gonna be here for a while. Chibaku Tensai, heavenly body bursting from the earth. Meanwhile, with Soren office of the human auction house. Mr. Doflamingo, this is Disco. The timid owner of the human auction house said into the receiver of the Den Den Mushi in a quiet voice. Listen, there's been some problems here and I was just wondering, can you come over to maybe try and help out? Laughter came from over the line before Doflamingo spoke back up. No. I don't think I will, come to think of it. I'm so tired with the slave trading business, it's so boring. So from now on your problems are your problems. Ta-ta Disco-kun. The entire building began to shake as Disco's jaw dropped. You can't be serious. You're just going to let us alone here. I'll be killed. There's a lunatic right here with. He was then promptly knocked unconscious via having his head shoved forward through a wall by Soren from behind. Tisk. Useless, Soren said to himself as he then took the receiver and spoke into it. Oh Doflamingo. So I hear you aren't dropping in to let me turn your organs into a fine liquid. That's disappointing. Oh, it's Acid Boy. Well, sorry, I've got something more interesting than that pay slave house to worry about these days. Something that's far more interesting than you two. And it's not even close. Fufufufufu. Well, maybe we can meet up for this interesting thing. Soren said, flexing out a fist and wishing that Doflamingo was right in front of him to punch right in the mouth or worse. I like to party, so let me drop in on this too. Is there alcohol? Oh, you don't seem to be the warfaring type. This one's way over your head, you bald baby chick. But hey, if you feel like stepping in between a war between the Shichibukai, the Marines, and the Whitebeard pirates, then be my guest. He started cackling again as Soren's face was one of pure astonishment and disbelief. That's all the answer I need from you right there. Try again when you get a little more heart, kid. The conversation ended with Doflamingo hanging up on his end of the line and Soren just standing there frozen by what he had just heard. A war between those three. No way, man. That's just. He shook his head as the shaking of the building gave way to it tearing away all around him, starting from the ceiling up and floating into the sky over their head. Oh, and this just keeps on getting worse. He said as he ran off to get back to the ship, not knowing that his crew was still pretty close. With Foxhound Pirates Grove 15 lawless area, this is ridiculous. Perona cried out, using her negative ghosts to sap the fighting spirit out of multiple Marines that had tried to attack her along with the other Foxhound Pirates. I am not with them. I'm a prisoner, she argued, still fighting back despite her claims to be innocent in all of this. She was a Shichibukai's crewmate. Even though she wasn't famous outside of Thriller Bark, her word had to mean something, didn't it? Not really. Yeah, because you sure seem like one right now. Nojiko sarcastically remarked from atop Funkfried along with Murat, clearing the way off in the distance with her ranged rifle before they ever got that far. Come on, how much further is it to Grove 54? This entire day had just frazzled her nerves entirely. She had never even gotten to say oh to her sister Nami or anything since everything broke down so quickly. It's this way. Johnny shouted before being grabbed from behind by Yosaku. What's the big idea? He asked, stopping long enough to quickly unsheath his sword and cut down a few Marines that had strayed too close to try and take him down. Yosaku used his Miv cleaver sword and smashed through his end of a bridge leading to their grove to cut the pursuing Marine force off from chasing them. You're going the wrong way, Jack. It's that way. He shouted, pointing in a completely different direction. This way. This way. No, it's that way, I'm sure of it. Vivi palmed her face while Byron, who was still with the lot of them, looked over at the two arguing swordsmen who were yelling at each other and fighting Marines simultaneously. Does this happen too terribly often? He asked, wondering just what the dynamic of these people happened to be. Yes, sadly, replied the blue-haired desert-dwelling princess. So they were lost. That was just great. It wasn't like they could just stop and ask for directions either. The whole archipelago was in an uproar, and quite personally Vivi wanted to put as much distance as she could between herself and that place. Hey! Vivi called out when she saw that Johnny and Yosaku were beginning to trade sword strikes between themselves while they kept arguing over the direction. Stop fighting each other. She ran over and punched them both in the head. I am not having a good week. Be stupid some other time. Murat hopped down from Funkfried and moved to Vivi's side to put a calming hand on the shoulder of the seething princess who had been on quite an emotional roller coaster that day. Whoa honey, calm down, easy. It's okay. Deep breaths. She then pointed east. That's the way, I remember. So can we get going already before something else bad happens? I agree. Byron said, eyes looking around for any more advancing Marines that may have tried to prevent them from moving forward. His statement got Perona to stop fuming about the lack of respect or recognition from the Marines that were supposed to be Shichibukai allies in order to pay attention to him. Wait, you're actually coming with these people, weird guy. Why? You don't even know them. Byron nodded in agreement, but his face was one of poise and honor. Maybe so, but these people freed me from my bonds and a fate worse than death. Thanks to them I can freely roam the seas again, so why wouldn't I choose to go with them if they would have me? He gave a flourish of about to the women of the crew that were present. I request a place on your crew if at all possible. Wow. How old-fashioned. With Soren Grove 7 bridge to shipping area, because one wasn't enough the last time. Soren said to himself. The reason being that there were 2 Bartholomew Kuma lookalikes on the bridge, more or less keeping it on lockdown. The last time he had seen more than one Bartholomew Kuma, it was a stupid cyborg that nearly killed him, and now there were 2, and he had no backup. How many of these stupid things exist? Soren. Looking up at the sky and the canopy of the Miv trees that comprised Sabayati archipelago, Soren saw Miss Valentine drift down from the sky on her umbrella. Valentine. What the, aren't you with the others? I was with Naruto when he made his huge ball of debris out of the human auction house. I saw you run this way away from everyone else and I thought, hey, who would probably need my help the most? Miss Valentine said, closing her umbrella up and pointing it at the 2 pacifista cyborgs in front of them. Or do you want to try this by yourself? On one hand, his pride and backward sense of chivalry towards women despite their strength told him to fight it out on his own. But the fact that the last time he fought a pacifista he was mercilessly ragdolled about won out in the end, and he wordlessly and reluctantly nodded his agreement to Miss Valentine's eye stance. The eyes of the pair of pacifista began to glow as they locked onto the pair. Human albatross Miss Valentine, bounty 83 million belly. The plague, Soren, bounty 251 million belly. Miss Valentine scoffed, but never lost her smile despite her apparent annoyance. I swear I hate that stupid nickname. She said before smacking her umbrella into her open palm in preparation for the coming fight. You ready? Instead of getting an immediate answer from her current partner, the pacifista charged laser blasts from their hands and fired them at the 2 pirates who used their respective speed techniques to evade, Soren's Soru and Miss Valentine's Heinho. I don't think it matters if I'm ready or not. Soren shouted before getting in close, dodging extra laser blasts as he did so. Hey, I'm faster this time and I've got all kinds of other moves too. Maybe I won't be half past dead when this one's over. He thought to himself, deciding to fully engage in the battle at hand for better or for worse. I hate this crew. Oh, no you don't. Don't be such a liar. You love us. Miss Valentine said in a contradictory manner. dodging a laser blast with a high jump before evading another one by quickly putting on a lot of weight to fall down faster. While Miss Valentine was focusing on her evasion techniques, Soren didn't want to get bogged down in a long fight at a time like that. Using one of his sharp canine teeth, he cut a deep gash from his shoulder down to his hand, allowing his own blood to coat the entire limb before the sizzling life fluid with acidic properties quickly cauterized his own wound. "I've got to go for the knockout right now before this dries." It was the only thing he could think of that could get through the metal that his regular acid couldn't get through the last time around. He had to be on his game and as fast as possible, or else he was going to pay for attempting a close-range direct attack on this thing. Then again, that was the only way he knew how to fight other than launching distance attacks, and none of those would work in this case. Eb no kai. Eb no deba, rot blood. Rot knife. A high-speed rush from the first mate of the Foxhound crew was used preemptively the moment he saw the telltale flash of another laser blast charging up. The blast missed him and Soren buried his knife-edged hand right through the neck of the pacifista, surprised that the things actually bled when he decapitated it via his special attack. As he watched the head of the pacifista fly through the air and the body of the MIV thing fall to the ground, Soren blinked in surprise. He knew his blood was his strongest acid despite the fact that he didn't have much to use freely due to the anemia his devil fruit power gave him, but it just let him drive his hand and arm into metal like it was a lump of cold butter. Whoa. He said to himself, the loss of blood from his previously grievous wound getting to him as he stumbled a bit. "I did it. Without needing a doctor afterwards." Miss Valentine laughed as she wound up getting close to one of the pacifista. "These things fight poorly, they're just really powerful and durable," she commented, using her umbrella to smash one in the leg with the weight behind it, sweeping it to the ground where she decided to finish with one move. Miss Valentine lifted one of her legs high above her head before dropping it heel first in a precision axe kick. Hisatsu. 5,000 kilo Hisaki no Ono, sure kill. 5,000 kilogram axe's edge. The kick smashed the entire head of the pacifista, destroying the cyborg with the scary MIV amount of weight behind the attack crushing its cranium and part of the ground underneath it, forming a forceful crater. All you need is some serious sure kill power to beat one. I think a minimum of 5,000 kilograms dropping onto the head is enough, don't you? Miss Valentine concluded with a bright smile and a laugh, undermining how dark that would have been if it had been an actual person instead of a cyborg. Even then it still bled. Most people can't put together that kind of force though, even with a cannon. Her powers were kind of cheating in that kind of instance, but it wasn't her fault she had trained on how to use them, it was Naruto's fault. Soren took his bandana from off of his head and wrapped it tightly around his bicep where his self-inflicted gash had been the worst to keep it from breaking back open while they ran. Cool. So let's get going already, I'm dizzy. Poor anemic psychopath. Shut up, Valentine. With Naruto remnants of Grove 1 standing on the top of his own MIV airborne ball of random debris that in reality wasn't so random, Naruto was paying attention to every bit of material comprising the ball. His reason for using Chibaku Tensei was to take in all of the cannons and other heavy arms that the Marines had surrounded the human auction house Grove with. It was only a bonus really that he could use it for a pretty scary attack to boot. Just seeing the floating body of material sent the Marine grunts running for the hills, even though there weren't any hills, because Naruto had simultaneously disarmed them of anything that could reach him with the use of his jutsu. It was like fighting something inhuman. The entire top stalk and trunk of the Grove tree had to go due to the powerful pull of the technique, ripping it from its ground-like roots above the water. Sorry tree, but some evil stuff happened on you and I can't let that stand, Naruto said, apologizing to what he believed to be quite an amazing bit of nature, the Urukiman groves that comprised the landmark town. Now all he had to do was find something to throw it at. The stupid tree canopies kept him from seeing what he needed to in the multiple groves. So he didn't see the multiple volleys of light blasts that pulverized the Chibaku Tensei ball out of the air. And due to the all-attracting properties of the jutsu, each one of them hit the compressed ball and forced it to fall apart from the force. Naruto fell back to the ground, using the debris and jumping off of the bits and pieces on the way down to keep his falling speed low for safety until he could reach the trunk of another Urukiman tree to slide down the trunk. Upon landing he stood in the middle of the falling rifles, cannons, pieces of building, chunks of tree, and other random things that were coming down through the top of the tree leaves. Impressive as always. In the dust of the currently catastrophically embattled area, a tall figure walked through the shroud, making himself and his loud striped yellow suit known. You sure don't know much how to hold back at times like this, Uzumaki Naruto. Crap. Well, logic said that it wasn't going to be Aokiji that was sent. After what had occurred at Eni's lobby, he was probably still getting his butt chewed out about that, and Naruto didn't know the other admiral, so why wouldn't it be Kizaru that was sent? The same trick he pulled in Alabasta wasn't going to work twice. But maybe he didn't even have to try anything. Bye monkey boy. Naruto said, waving at Kizaru before vanishing in a yellow flash. As things still fell from the sky, Kizaru only stared at the place where Naruto had just been standing moments before. He swung the bad guy's huge floating ball of crud out of the air and he just disappeared on him. I almost forgot how annoying you were. You won't get away no matter how fast you think you are. Kuma let the Straw Hat Pirates escape with his technique to transport them away. He wasn't going to let the biggest bounty on the island escape as well since he fought to a draw with Silver's Rayleigh. Even if Naruto could teleport himself too, his underlings couldn't. They had a ship, and the marine battleships dispatched to Sabayati Archipelago were still keeping the north and east side of the place on watch. So all he had to do was wait for them to try and leave, and there he'd have his target in a fix. And with that in mind, he moved in a series of flashes of light towards the closest warship. On board the natural disaster, the door to the main room of the ship was thrust open with Naruto running outside onto the deck. To his relief, the crew were already moving around, preparing for the worst as the ship was slowly moving through the groves trying to leave Sabayati Archipelago, and the open ocean was in sight. Did we get away? Naruto asked aloud before realizing that there was no seafaring battle going on, getting him to sigh in relief. Yes, we got away. Cool. He quickly made his way to the helm where Vivi, who had recently taken on the responsibility of steering the ship in his absence, was manning the wheel. Vivi Heim. I'm sorry. Vivi said preemptively, trying to keep Naruto from saying what she already expected him to. I was scared. I did it to try and keep the worst from happening to you guys, but it wound up happening anyway. She finished flatly. Once again she had sorely underestimated how far south things could go with her friends, all of them. Naruto sighed and sat down on the bench beside Vivi, who was standing up to see better while steering. Even if Luffy hadn't knocked that guy's block off for whatever reason he did it the minute I found out that you'd done something as stupid as you did, I would have just taken you back anyway. He grabbed Vivi's hand and prompted her to sit down next to him so that she would listen for certain. If it had been you instead of Robin-chan that had been in her position at Eni's lobby, I would have been the first one kicking that place's gates down to get you out. Against these people, that's really dumb. You can't win a war against the people who created the world government. That's a war with the entire world itself. I've always been kind of dumb. Some things you don't grow out of. That's self-sacrificial and stupid. Worry about yourself sometime. Apparently in Alabasta, Vivi had been more than willing to give up her life to protect her country from crocodile and baroque works. Well, here she was willing to lose her freedom so that the rest of the crew didn't suffer the wrath of the world nobles. She was brave, but she liked to take her problems onto her own shoulders too much. Naruto was sort of the opposite. He seemed to take on the problems of others too much. He still hadn't grown up out of that even after decades of it. Always trying to be a problem solver, you should listen to your own advice too, you know. Naruto said in response, getting Vivi to roll her eyes. I know you're tough, but just remember, as long as you're with us you don't have to do things by yourself. And even when you go home, if Alabasta needs help that you can't fix on your own, maybe we can help you out. I'll always be one move away. When I get more special, can I? Alright. Vivi nodded, smiling at that thought with some reddening of her cheeks. She had heard that much before, from Luffy and his crew as well, but to know that eventually if she needed the help it would be one quick throw of a weapon away, it made her feel rather safe, even though the person assuring her of this fact was probably the least safe person alive. Hey, dumb blonde captain, I need you to come with me to the wading pool to check something out. I think you need to see it. Grumbling at being called dumb blonde captain by Polly and his full-on rudeness, Naruto got up to head back inside and check the hold of the ship in the location at the back where he was requested to go. Yeah. I'm on the way, you jerk. You can call me by my name, you know. Watching him leave for a moment before he disappeared inside from her sight, Vivi went right back to steering the ship when she saw Nojiko walk in front of her and the wheel, leaning on the front of it with a sly smirk on her face. With a sniper like me, I see everything, you know. You and our fearless captain are getting kind of close, aren't you? What are you saying, Nojiko? I can't feel like that about a pirate, even one like Naruto. I'm a princess of a nation of the world government. Vivi defended with a huff at Nojiko's implication, pausing for a moment when they both heard a loud shout from the inside that sounded like, "I'm not a pirate," before she continued, "I'm not like the rest of you. You and Miss Valentine can do this forever, I can't. Eventually I have to go home and move on from all of this, no matter how much fun it is." Nojiko said in a disbelieving tone of voice before poking Vivi right in the middle of her forehead. "Whatever you say, but you know you don't believe that." She then turned towards the front of the ship to keep looking out for trouble. "Geez, you act like we haven't seen like 3 other kingdoms with ties to pirates before." Vivi stuck her out at Nojiko behind her back and turned her attention back to keeping the ship on track to get away from Sabayati Archipelago as soon as possible until she heard a very loud expletive from Soren's position in the crow's nest. What's the matter? Oh, Nojiko said with a frown on her face as she saw the source of Soren's vulgar outburst. "Yeah, there's a warship trying to head us off at the P." Failure was apparently not an option if they were actually pursuing them with one lone ship. Either that or they didn't know that it was the natural disaster that they were about to face off with. Cannons ready. Both Johnny and Yosaku chimed in unison as they had them loaded and turned in the proper direction, Nojiko moving between them, adjusting them to make sure they really were ready to fire. "Come on, new guy, lend us a hand here." As requested, Byron was manning the heaviest cannon, prepared to fire that one first and foremost. "This might not be the best time to bring this up, but I can't say how good it feels to be out and doing this again." Freedom certainly was sweet, and if he were caught he'd be sent right back to the people that had bought him. That was not a choice as far as he was concerned. They fired a SWAT. Nojiko shouted after hearing the blast of a cannon from the enemy ship, "But there's no way their guns are in range of us if we can't even hit them yet." Was it a warning SWAT? It didn't seem likely. "Whatever, Vivi, go around wide. It's just the one ship, we don't have to fight it. It won't catch us if we can just get our back to it. On board the marine ship, we can't hit them from this range, sir," a marine captain said, saluting Kizaru, who was standing casually with his hands in his pockets. "I'm sorry, but we need to risk getting closer to their ship." He knew that much was dangerous as the natural disaster ship was vicious in close quarters and could pick up speed suddenly among other things. "Yeah, that's okay," Kizaru replied smoothly before standing on the top of the cannon that had just fired. He made a F-pant, nonchalant hand gesture as he looked out towards the Foxhound pirate ship, reloaded and fire again. "This is good enough actually. Keep moving toward it though. I'll need you there to pick me back up." According to Kizaru's orders, the cannon was reloaded and quickly fired, sending a cannonball into the air that Kizaru timed with his light powers to wind up standing on the ball as it flew through the air. From there, right before the cannonball began descending, Kizaru jumped off, hanging in the air over the ship before landing atop one of the tree-like masts. "You know, I have to say that this ship is interesting." He took a step off of the mast and started to fall before turning his body to light and flashing his way to the deck where he reappeared, looking around down there as well, GR on the deck too. Strange. Every single member of the crew froze in place with looks of horror on their faces. There was an admiral, right there on their ship. Close enough to see, close enough to hear, almost close enough to touch. Though there were 7 of them and 1 of him, not a single one of the rogue crew dared to move to try and take advantage of it. And Kizaru seemingly didn't have any problems with that as he just stood there observing them all, another rookie crew. "But I don't see either of your top 2. That's kind of a letdown. Did I make a mistake in believing that Uzumaki would arrive here by now? What are we going to do now?" Nojiko thought to herself. She didn't dare risk reaching for one of her guns. Not that she wasn't confident in her quickdraw, but not against an admiral. At the moment, her raw untrained precognitive haki was doing nothing but flashing sights of their own violent demises in front of her eyes. If she tried any kind of move, nothing about this is going to end well. There's no move to make. The thing about being afraid is, your brain will at times work down to a reaction that isn't always the best course of action to take. Usually this manifests itself as an act of overt aggression in the hopes that you'll catch the source of your fear off guard and enable an opportunity that you otherwise wouldn't have had. This usually occurs in the minds of the simpler creatures of the world when they find themselves seemingly cornered. Which would explain why Johnny and Yosaku took the initiative to attempt to attack, with the latter following up on the former's quickdraw slash that cut right through Kizaru's waist. Of course he simply reverted to light before reforming himself as if he were never injured at all. Feeling their swords pee through nothing, Johnny and Yosaku didn't even have the time for true panic to set in before Johnny was kicked in the face hard enough to be sent flying into the mast, where he peeled off of it like a bug and fell to the deck. Almost instinctively at having such a threat still right in front of him, Yosaku drove his Kubikiraboucho into the ground and planned to hide behind the flat of his blade to block any other attack from Kizaru. But that was not enough, as a thin beam of light ped through his body from the side, all the way through, dropping him to his knees with a desperate gasp. How can he? Yosaku thought to himself as he turned his head to the side and saw Kizaru, still aiming his index finger right at him. How can someone be that fast? Down boy, Kizaru said mockingly towards his wounded quarry, preparing to finish the job with similar attack until a series of swows rang out and bullets ped through his body with specks of light representing where he should have been wounded. Well, you certainly don't give up, do you? And then a barrage of acidic projectiles flew through his body much in the same manner. Acid. What a scary power, he said calmly and cheerfully. A shadow appeared above him, and from the sky Miss Valentine dropped down with her umbrella at the ready to smash Kizaru. He might use a Logia fruit like crocodile, but with this it doesn't matter. I can still hit him. Too slow, Kizaru said disappointedly, throwing a jumping kick into the air that fired off a laser blast that hit the falling and mostly vulnerable woman, causing an explosion and forcing her to fall right back onto the deck, her attack thwarted. With an opening like that, there was no way I was going to let you finish whatever you had planned. Miss Valentine let out a cough before laughing weakly, trying to get back up with little success. That blast hit her while she was wide open with nowhere to go, and the fall to the deck wasn't exactly gentle either. Not my best idea, but I couldn't let you kill Yosaku like that. So now you'll both die instead? Kizaru asked, ignoring the fact that Soren was skulking and lurking around somewhere looking for an opening. He would never find one that could actually harm him, so it didn't matter. You're right, that idea wasn't that smart, at all. He looked around for anyone else on the ship only to see a rather rattled Vivi still manning the helm. Ah, Nefertari Vivi. I'm going to need you to come with me. Vivi didn't move and just shook her head slowly. No. Well, I'll just finish up here and take you anyway. There are some concerns that we have with your actions over the past year that maybe you can clear up for us. Say, where is the other woman? The one with the guns. Once again, it was of no consequence since Nojiko couldn't harm him with her weapons, but losing sight of one of the enemy members was a little embering. That is of no importance to you, Admiral Kizaru. I will gladly be your opponent instead. The ragged-looking tagalong of the crew, Byron, stepped into the space between Kizaru on the deck and Vivi at the front of the ship where she was still steering. The ever-present calm smile of Kizaru didn't change a bit, and you would be. I didn't know that this crew had any new people on it at all. I owe these people a debt that I cannot repay if you kill or capture them. Byron said, casting his dirty black jacket aside to leave him in his tattered white ruffled shirt as he rolled his sleeves up to his elbows in preparation for a fight. And you won't capture me either. I would rather die than go back. As you wish then, Kizaru said as calmly as ever, raising an eyebrow in interest as he saw Byron's hair begin to grow out wider and down his back like a mane. Another devil fruit user. These people just seem to get stranger and stranger all the time. A barrage of quills then flew through his body. They don't seem to get much smarter though. I knew that wouldn't work. Byron said, his hair standing up on end from the position that they had fired the hair follicles from, but I just had to try anyway. Very well then. At this point he was merely stalling for Nojiko to get to whatever she ran off inside of the ship for. You think my devil fruit is interesting? I'll show you the power of the KK no Mi hair fruit. Even if Byron fought, it wouldn't do any good. He beat everyone else that tried, and direct attacks weren't hurting him at all. How is anyone supposed to beat a Logia user like this? How did Naruto live through this? Before they could start fighting though, the deck right by the steering wheel and Vivi burst open with Naruto landing there. The spot had been right beneath his room on the ship, so he could ruin it if he wanted to. It was the second time that someone broke through it, so why not him this time? Hi. Naruto said, Rinnegan eyes locked firmly on Kizaru. That was certainly the quietest fight with someone that strong that had ever happened on the natural disaster. Training was usually louder than that battle had been. Oh. Kizaru replied amicably before lifting his leg and shooting a laser blast at Naruto with a kick. With the reflexes given to him in Sage mode, Naruto disappeared in a yellow flash, forcing the blast to miss and hit the waters of the ocean a ways away instead of hitting him. He then hopped back out of the hole in the deck, having used Haracian to quickly avoid the move. So Kizaru was still as fast as ever. What a pain, Vivi Heim, keep steering the ship. Naruto told her, setting a hand on her shoulder as a form of reassurance that everything was going to be okay. Mirai's on her way to make sure everyone that got hurt is going to be alright. As he said that, his awareness while in Sage mode allowed him to pull Vivi down with him to duck a kick from Kizaru aimed at him. This is too dangerous to fight on the ship. He drew a Haracian kunai and threw it into the skies above the ocean, grabbing the weapon as his descent began only for Kizaru to appear in the air with him. The Admiral delivered a speedy kick once he saw Naruto immediately retaliate to his presence with a punch that had them clash in midair. Oh, so you can keep pace a little better this time. Kizaru said in amusement from behind his gold-tinted sungles. Good to see that you could learn something new. And you didn't just jump right at me this time at light speed. Naruto replied in turn with determination in his gaze. I was hoping I could time you and reflect you away again like the last time. When Kizaru had attacked him by Vivi, he had merely picked a spot right by Naruto on the deck of the ship and stopped short instead of attacking him directly. No such luck, I'm afraid. I thought so. With that, the two pushed away from each other and seemed to vanish in the air. Chapter 40. Knight of Recourse. Kizaru was ballsy to fight Naruto on the water, there was no question about it. He had to know just how much of a disadvantage he was at, even with the fact that he had a marked speed advantage. All Naruto had to do was drench him with seawater and that would be that. He would be all but useless in a battle against him. He obviously knew that, because he was merely hanging high in the air looking down on Naruto, who stood on the surface of the water between the ship of the Foxhound pirate crew and the marine battleship that Kizaru had taken to reach them. He can do that. Naruto thought to himself, the water of the waves brushing against his face. Even if he wasn't in Sage mode at the moment, with his body soaking wet he could have punched Kizaru right in the face as he was. How in the world can he? Why didn't he ever do that the last time we fought? You don't live long on the seas with such an obvious weakness if you don't know how to circumvent it. Kizaru said casually as he continued to just stand on the air as if it were nothing at all. So what are you going to do now with your vaunted control of the seas being useless to you? I doubt you can make a wave, over 100 feet high. That would be really scary. Glaring up at the man that never seemed to take him seriously no matter what he pulled out combat-wise, Naruto growled to himself and on his Rinnegan eyes went, you're not the only one that's got some extra moves up your sleeve that you didn't use last time around. Oh, really? Kizaru drawled out, still looking very amused, so you've got more magic tricks up your sleeve, do you? Well, by all means, perform. Kizaru made a motion to look at a non-existent wristwatch on his arm. I'll give you 5 minutes. 5 minutes and I'll finish my job to destroy your ship and your crew. You could be strong enough to keep yourself safe, but could you keep them safe as well? And if you can't, then if you still feel like it we can keep on fighting. This isn't going to take 5 minutes. Naruto bit his thumb and quickly made a few hand seals before slamming his hand onto the surface of the water. Kuchio's no jutsu, summoning jutsu. Kizaru looked on in a bit of interested surprise as from the smoke that appeared via Naruto's jutsu, a large, ugly bird with a drill-like beak and 3 legs. It also shared Naruto's ripple pattern Rinnegan eyes, which meant it shared his field of vision and Naruto shared its own as well. Oh, that's interesting. He said as he saw it flying up directly at him at an absurd speed, but not fast enough as he moved right out of its way. Not really a good idea to try and attack with anything that large though. Senpo. Resentai Hope Sage Art. Spiraling Cannon. The sound of a rifle crack rang out and a fist-sized bullet of chakra flew up from the surface of the water right at Kizaru faster than the naked eye could see. He expected the attack to phase right through him and was prepared with a sarcastic comment to remark on it, but instead the attack smashed right into his belly and propelled him high into the air. A smirking Naruto stood on the water where the smoke from his summoning had cleared, his fist still outstretched from firing his Risentaiho. Oh, the bird wasn't the attack. In a flash of yellow, Naruto reappeared in the sky on his freaky bird's back as there was a Hiraishin kunai gripped tightly in one of its feet. It's my ride. Now Naruto was aerially mobile. And it was his fastest summoned creature. Not as fast as Kizaru's light, but it didn't need to be. It was fast enough for what he needed it for, transportation around the battlefield. He'd handle the rest when it came to dealing with the speedy bad guy. And he was still grinning all the while, because he had finally managed to hit Kizaru. So it definitely wasn't impossible for him. He just needed to be fast. Faster than fast even. Even if Kizaru could move at purely inhuman speeds even past that of the fastest enemies Naruto had ever faced, he still had very human reflexes, and while his were still extremely impressive, Naruto could outwork those reflexes. Kizaru eventually stopped spiraling through the air, drawing to a halt in the skies to look down at Naruto again, flying about on his bird. "You hit me," he said, patting down the smoldering spiral-shaped burn on the front of his suit that was still producing smoke. "How in the world did you?" "Ah, hockey. Sure, we can call it that," Naruto said, sick of explaining the properties of Sage Mode. If that was what they wanted to call the effect that let Naruto hit Logia users, then he would simply roll with it. No need to correct anyone, especially when they were wrong. Now shut up and get your kicked like a good boy. Kizaru just looked at his watch and his quirked. That had barely taken any time at all. 4 minutes, 37 seconds left. By the time he looked back up, Naruto on his drill-beaked bird was already flying towards him again. Time's a-wasting. Meanwhile, on board the natural disaster, Murat had made it onto the deck and had begun the healing process of icing Johnny, Miss Valentine, and Yosaku, who was dealing with the worst wounds after Kizaru's systematic decimation of the fighters. "I can't see anything," Byron remarked in regards to the battle between Naruto and Kizaru. They could hear it, of course. The booms in the air sounded like thunder, but seeing it was entirely different altogether. "What is happening to Naruto-sama? He's in a fight, Quill Brain," Soren remarked to the recently freed slave in an antsy, irritated way. "If you can still hear it, it ain't close to being over yet." The reason for Soren's irritable attitude. He had attacked Kizaru several times and the bad guy just let them pee on through him. He had gotten so much stronger since stepping onto that crew, but he still seemed to be out of his league when it came to the Admiral CL Marines. And 3 of his friends had been injured while he had been trying to figure a way to attack and harm Kizaru. Whoa, friends. Yeah, friends. There was not a chance and he could deny it now. Each bad guy on that ship was a friend of his, and being useless despite the fact that he fancied himself the second strongest of them hurt. Meanwhile, Vivi was not really concerned with the fight in the sky, even though she'd shake a little every time she heard a loud boom from the clashes or the trading of blows. She was more worried about steering the ship out of harm's way, but the marine warship was not keen on letting them get away. "It's sticking with us. We can outrun it, but it'll take a while." If Naruto were there behind the helm, he could simply power the wind seals in the sail and off they'd be. But as it was, without such they were no faster than a regular marine vessel of their size, which was coincidentally what they were being chased by. Hearing that got Soren to let out a groan. "Where the is Polly? If anyone knows how to make this tub go faster without Uzumaki playing a living battery to it, it'd be him. He never came up. He's in the common area on the Den Den Mushi for some reason," Murat said, continuing to patch up her friends and crewmates while trying to block out the sounds of the fighting. "I really hope it's a good reason. If that prude of a shipwright wasn't doing something important on the phone, she'd have Funkfried crush him." Perona's down in the hold, as far away from Kizaru as she can get. For someone that could fight as well as Perona could with her devil fruit powers, she was clearly shaken by those that she knew without a shadow of a doubt were stronger than her. In this case, she was probably far smarter than any of them. None of this was being paid much mind by Nojiko, who was sitting on the stairs leading to the helm holding her head, images of Naruto and Kizaru's ongoing fight flashing through her skull as clear as day as they were making their every move. And since they were moving faster than the normal eye could see, the images were slowed down and shoved into her mind at a rate she could understand, at the normal speed of processing thought. The sharpshooting brunette's pretty little head didn't know how to take it. It was like the ultimate migraine from. Goodness, why did she have to get the precognitive hockey? And why didn't anyone tell her it hurt this badly the first time she started using new aspects of it? Skies above the natural disaster and marine battleship Naruto vs. Kizaru. Naruto's drill-beaked bird was a moving platform that he always retreated to, using his Hiraishin technique to quickly flash back after leaving it to attack his enemy. It was a very pestering style of offense even if Kizaru hadn't let Naruto land any clean hits after it had been confirmed that Naruto could knock his lights out literally given the opportunity. But there was something about Naruto that was beginning to piss Kizaru off as well. The bird that the blonde shinobi captain was riding could dodge his attacks without even looking his way. It was fast, but to be able to sense an attack coming as fast as his own. Impossible. Of course he didn't know that both Naruto and the bird shared the same field of vision, thus what Naruto saw the bird saw and vice versa. But then again that wasn't really a question that one brought up in the middle of a fight against said person or bird. As far as parlor tricks go, Kizaru started to say, preparing to fire another blast at Naruto's bird, yours are actually very good. He threw a kick that swung an explosive beam of light at the bird only to hit nothing despite the fact that the bird wasn't facing him. How is it dodging me? A sharp whistle echoed out from Naruto's place on the bird and from the water like a guided missile. Samahata flew out directly at Kizaru tip first, which meant that the smirking mouth and jagged teeth were clearly visible on the sentient weapon. Kizaru was able to move out of the way, hearing from Aokiji that Naruto's odd sword could harm Logia users. It was a good thing that he managed to avoid it so well during their first encounter in Alabasta. Then, you brought that creepy sword to fight me once again. As the shark skin sword was high in the air above Kizaru's head, it diverted its trajectory to fly directly into Naruto's hands atop his bird. GGGGGG, Samahata is not creepy. Samahata is the strongest sword in the world. Master knows this. The sword chattered angrily, vibrating in Naruto's grasp. I know that. Naruto said to calm the sword down, but he doesn't. And to be honest, you are kind of creepy. I thought that myself whenever people used you against me. The sword angrily chattered again and Naruto's eye twitched in response to what was said. Yeah, whatever, let's do this. Kizaru meanwhile was taking aim at Naruto atop the bird with his fingers before finally finding his moment to fire, which he did, only for Naruto to jump from his summoned creature as it dove to avoid the attack. How does he keep anticipating my attacks the way he does? The Admiral said to himself as he saw Naruto soar through the air towards him. Enough with this crap. Naruto shouted aloud, charging Samahata full of chakra. If I can't stop him and hit him, I'll just take away anywhere for him to run to. Yajirishi Misairu and flaming arrow missiles. Samahata's scaly skin stood up on end before multiple spines began to be fired from the weapon. Dozens upon dozens of miniature missiles filled the air all over, seemingly homed in on Kizaru. Kizaru just peered into the sky at all of the missiles that were surrounding him on all sides, or so it appeared. Oh, and he was kind enough to leave me an escape route as well. I sure hope he isn't trying to trap me the moment I escape in that direction. That would be a shame. He said sarcastically before holding his arms out. Yasukani no Magatama, 8 Shaku Curved Jewel. From his hands a rapid-fire torrent of light particles flew outward to blow up all of Naruto's missiles in the air. It was a veritable lights and fireworks show. If it wasn't so terrifying to think about what was happening so close to all of them below, it would have been beautiful. The view was clearly visible from Sabayati Archipelago, and much attention would have been paid to it were it not for the fact that there was chaos rampant all over the island at the moment. However, anyone with sense observing the scene would stay far away instead of thinking of venturing closer for a better look. Naruto cursed mentally at seeing his Asura Path attack fail. So Kizaru had large-scale attacks along with the ridiculous speed and precise laser-like maneuvers. Of course he did. He had to have all of his bases covered in battle, didn't he? Even Naruto's Asura Path missile attack didn't cover enough air. A smirk came over Kizaru's face as he held out his hands again and formed a sword that seemed to be made of pure light before disappearing right in front of Naruto's eyes, who knew what was coming before it even happened. Crap. He jumped off of his summoned bird just as it was slashed by Kizaru's sword. The bird let out a screech of pain and returned from whence it came in a puff of smoke as Naruto fell towards the water from the sky. Let's see how indestructible you are. Kizaru commented as he watched Naruto fall towards the ocean. Falling from this height, it doesn't matter who you are. But Naruto never hit the water. What he did in order to avoid such actually got the yellow-clad admiral's eye to twitch. "You are truly the most annoying man in the world." Instead of falling from the sky, Naruto was instead standing on the tip of Samahata's handle as the large sword hovered upside down in the sky, chakra ejecting from the weapon's mouth at its top like afterburners. "Sorry buddy. I know you hate it when I use you as my medium for the Asura Path techniques because you've got to waste so much of your chakra, but I'll put back however much you use. GGGGG, you'd better. You're too much of a slowpoke to let me taste this man's chakra without blocking his attacks." There was no time to mess around and Naruto stepped forward on the sword's handle while planting his other foot on the scaly flat of Samahata, using it like a surfboard to rocket through the air even faster than the bird had been going, and is a far harder target to hit due to the size. Kizaru started firing blasts at Naruto atop Samahata, but Naruto merely maneuvered the sword so that it would take the swaus, absorbing the energy behind them all the while. In return for that, Kizaru quickly appeared at Naruto's side with his light sword ready to swing. A quick draw motion from a pocket of his flak jacket put a Hiraishin kunai into Naruto's hand that he used to block the sword slash. Once again, the two started clashing all across the skies in flashes of light and afterburners with Kizaru trying to cut Naruto down in vain. He had to stop his absurd speed in order to take a swing at Naruto, and his awareness while in Sage mode made it so that he had enough reaction time to counter accordingly. Kizaru had honestly not expected this kind of a fight to be put up by Naruto, bounty notwithstanding. The first time they had fought, Naruto had managed to send him away with a lucky break that would not be repeated. And with Naruto's advantage of his control over the seas taken out of play, he expected to take Naruto down well within his 5-minute window that he had made for himself. Wait. 5 minutes. Oh, it looks like I've gotten carried away again. Kizaru said, acting as if he were mortified by a lack of professionalism or something along those lines. He checked his non-existent watch again with his usual unreadable expression on his face. "It's been closer to 10 minutes now. I only gave you 5 and then I said I would destroy your ship. And with all of those devil fruit users on it, well, you don't have to be brilliant to figure out what's going to happen next." Naruto's eyes widened and he turned to see that the natural disaster was still well within sight, even if it seemed very small due to its distance from them. "If you take a single swao at my ship, that's all the time I'll need to kill you in one move." Naruto threatened in return, knowing that one of Kizaru's accurate exploding kick blasts had a very good chance of sinking the vessel, not even to say if he fired that volume attack from before. "Kill me in one move. Oh no." That deadpan sarcasm that Kizaru kept throwing his way was really annoying in Naruto's opinion. "Well, it all depends on how lucky you feel. Do you think you can hit me before I can do what I want? I am light, you know. I don't have to shoot your ship from here, I can just travel there as light. From here to there I'm faster than your little teleportation technique and you know it." This time, Naruto didn't say a word, just staring Kizaru down as the two of them faced off in the air. All of a sudden Naruto disappeared in a yellow flash and Kizaru followed suit in a burst of light. Moments earlier on board the natural disaster, "Get the out of the way or help me." Nojiko wailed desperately from inside the ship itself before she came rocketing out on her waver skates, holding a full-length body mirror she had taken from Miss Valentine's room. Vivi moved aside for the seeming benefit of her fellow brunette as Nojiko came to a stop right next to her at the helm and placed the mirror where she had been standing, facing towards the back of the ship. "Nojiko, what are you doing?" Nojiko didn't answer, instead nervously waiting, looking off in the direction where she and the others had left Naruto and Kizaru to fight in the sky while they tried to get away. In her head she had heard the conversation between Naruto and Kizaru, and she had then seen a vision of the entire ship going up in a fiery explosion. Beginning with Kizaru appearing on board the ship again, standing right on the steering wheel facing them all to be a dramatic douche about the whole thing before defeat them. She was so nervous she didn't even notice the glare of light reflecting off of the mirror, as she had been fearing the worst the entire time. At that moment, still in Sage mode, Naruto hopped out of the hole under the deck by the helm that he had smashed to get to Kizaru quickly at first. "Where is he? There's no way I beat him here." Naruto exclaimed suddenly as he looked around for any sign of Kizaru. "There's no way he'd have let me come back if he was planning on destroying the ship. I can defend it from here. The Admiral should have known that." Seconds passed by and still no Kizaru in sight. Nojiko eventually let out a sigh of relief and Naruto noticed the gigantic mirror in front of the helm that Nojiko was leaning against. He raised an eyebrow in interest at what he was seeing before it became quite clear as to what the First Lady of the Foxhound Pirates had managed to pull off. Naruto gave her a grin and outstretched his arms wide. A sly-looking Nojiko sauntered her way right into his arms and wrapped her arms around his neck before sharing a with him. Vivi just stared at them with a blush staining her cheeks at the public display of affection from Nojiko and her captain. "Ah," she said lamely, trying to get their attention while Naruto picked Nojiko up and spun her around as they continued to, "You were just freaking out a minute ago and now you two are." She tried to get out before her blush came back full force. "Stop it and tell me what's going on," Vivi ordered. Hearing the young princess snap at them actually got Naruto and Nojiko to stopping in order to look at her olishly. In order to explain, Naruto let his Sage Mode and Rinnegan fade and pointed at the mirror. "Kizaru can turn into light." Nojiko then picked up in the explanation. "I saw how he was going to come here and torch the ship, so I put a mirror where I visualized he was going to stand once he got here. I remember Naruto-kun saying something about that before." Vivi made a, "oh," face before taking a minute to think about something else. "Wait. So where did Admiral Kizaru go?" Red line, once again, a simple household mirror was his downfall. What an embering way to be forced to retreat, not once but twice. It had to be a mirror, because there was no way he ended up that far from the mark. No way at all. How in the world did this happen twice? It made no sense at all. How in the world did he hit a mirror? At least this time it didn't send him whipping all over the world. This time the angle he hit the mirror it couldn't send him that high into the air. It actually made him travel low enough to the surface to hit something solid this time to stop him. God, seriously. That guy had to be the one to come up with a way to stop him. Really. It couldn't have been someone like Shanks or Whitebeard. Any one of the Yonko he would have been better with them eventually brute forcing him into defeat rather than someone finding out a clever way to negate his direct speed like with Uzumaki Naruto. Sitting in a cave-sized fissure that he had pulverized into the titanic rock wall that wrapped around the entire world with his body, Kizaru adjusted his sungles on his relaxed face and sighed. "I think I hate him. I think I rather dislike them all actually," he said in his usual nonchalant voice. "I really think this is my least favorite pirate crew in the entire world." He was very tempted to neglect returning to Marineford for the encounter with Whitebeard just so he could chase Naruto and his crew down and deal with them accordingly. On board the natural disaster, "Ha!" Naruto shouted in a victorious manner, looking in no particular direction really as he didn't know which way Kizaru had been swow off towards. "Twice. That's twice now that we got you with the same thing, you arrogant, dull-faced bad guy. That's what you get for underestimating my crew. I bet you didn't know Noji-chan had that hockey stuff, did you?" Oh, that felt good. The first time Kizaru had underestimated Naruto due to his own speed advantage, a hard lesson he had learned from and improved upon the second time around as Naruto had only gotten him once after he had distanced himself from the ocean. This time he thought he had all his bases covered in the mounting battle against his rival in speed, but in trying to be a jerk and pick on the natural disaster's crew to get to Naruto and force the blonde into making a snap decision mistake, he had sorely underestimated the abilities of the remaining conscious crew members on it due to his quick and danger-free dealings with them the first time he got aboard the ship. And Nojiko of all people had sent him packing. Having heard the information of just what had sent Kizaru packing, again Byron, the former slave that he was, showed great excitement at the fact that he might actually get away, after surviving an attack from an admiral to boot. "Oh, good show," he exclaimed. "If I wasn't indebted to Naruto-sama before, I most certainly would have to be now." He tried to bow only to be hoisted back up to his feet by Soren, who rolled his eyes at Byron's ingrained tendencies. "Seriously, you're not a slave anymore, you don't bow to people. And you definitely don't call that scrub of a pirate with an honorific like that," he remarked, getting a tick mark to appear on Naruto's forehead. Still, Byron was simply happy to be alive and freed of his bonds. Thus he stood before them all and humbly bowed, clearing his throat to speak quite formally. "Ahem, I believe formal introductions from myself would be appropriate to those that took it upon themselves to allow me page on their ship. My name is Byron, hailing from the town of Taroa in the West Blue. I set out on a grand line quest to see the world and earn fame as a legendary pirate. I am a proud descendant of a long line of talented musicians from which I have inherited skill. Which instrument? Vivi queried, quite interested in the fact that they had someone seemingly of refined culture on board. Not that she minded the usual ruffian atmosphere of things, but hey, she was a princess. She still liked nice and sophisticated things. Byron took a moment to think before answering, well, there are many to be honest. Although I am personally partial to the piano. He admitted before continuing with his introduction, I am also a quite skilled maker of wine if I do say so myself. He added on as an afterthought. That almost got one of the present crew members who had barely been paying attention beforehand to stop the introduction right in its tracks. Soren just blinked and pointed a finger at the hair-manipulating pirate, so you're telling me that you can make us wine to get drunk off of as long as we have the stuff to do it? Byron nodded and this put a miv grin on Soren's face. He could probably make Uzumaki learn how to grow G-bads. He put an arm around the man's shoulder in a friendly manner. I think you and I are going to be very good friends. Forget about Uzumaki. As a pirate he's totally lame. Stick with me, yeah. I will tie you to the front of the ship. I'm not a pira. Naruto was about to shout at Soren before Nojiko locked with him again to ensure he shut up at least momentarily. It worked as when they broke off again he was no longer shouting about such a thing. What happened to Johnny, Yosaku, and Miss Valentine? He said, now noticeably more reserved in his tone of voice. They're fine. Soren told him, pointing down into the ship. Murat got them inside and she's taking care of them now. Yosaku took it the worst. That laser light show bad guy swung a hole right through him, but she says she can fix him. Good. Naruto said, sighing in relief as he sat behind the helm and channeled his chakra to the ship to power the wind seals in the sails and allow it to begin truly escaping the still pursuing marine warship. So where to next? I'm not the navigator here. Nojiko turned and pointed back towards where the log pose was pointing. We could try crossing the red line through Fishman Island, but we'd have to go back towards Sabayati Archipelago. Everyone within earswow, Byron especially, cringed and shook their heads at that prospect. I thought so. In that case we're just waiting for the heat to die down, however long that'll take. So now what? Vivi asked aloud with a hapless shrug of her shoulders. I'm not setting foot in that place again, but what are we going to do until things calm? Those waters are going to be swimming with marine ships looking for the people that messed with the world nobles. A resolute Soren crossed his arms over his chest and took up a rock-solid stance. Well, I'm not backtracking it. This is as far as I've ever come on the Grand Line by a long swow. If I go back I'll lose my nerve at going forward and I'll never get my swow at Doflamingo. For all of his thoughts of revenge in the past he had grown stagnant in the beginning portion of the Grand Line for 2 years after receiving his original MIB bounty. He didn't want to be one of those kinds of guys on the Grand Line that just hung around one place where they were a big fish in a small pond, only to get themselves smacked around when an even bigger fish came ping through, a gatekeeper. No, he wanted to go further, and if he got stopped and killed in doing so then maybe he just wasn't meant to find and kill Doflamingo after all. Speaking of Doflamingo, he remembered something from the human auction house of importance. Hey guys, I don't think the Marines that were sent out will be hanging around Sabayati too long anyway. I heard that there's something big going down, like a war with the Whitebeard pirates. Jaws all over the deck dropped before Vivi spoke up. What? Whitebeard's going to war with the Marines. That's just scary. Nojiko finished for her, taking a moment to shiver while thinking about it. What in God's name did they do to piss him off? I seriously don't want to be anywhere near that little showdown. She turned towards Soren. How did you even hear about that? Doflamingo and I had a nice little chat on a den mushi in the human auction house before the place got ripped to shreds. The acid-generating fighter stated in a gruff tone, the Shichibukai and the Marines are getting ready for a fight with the Whitebeard pirates. I don't know anything more than that. He wasn't very informative. The only reason the arrogant and twisted man even told him that much was just to get across the point that he found Soren's desire for revenge boring to him. Still, having never heard any of the stories about Whitebeard or his crew, all Naruto cared about was the prospect of a war. One he wasn't going to be able to prevent, having known nothing about it. During the last war he ended, at least he was at the center of it all. Here he was just an outsider looking in. I still don't know anything about this world. It was something really disheartening if he were to be honest. Uzumaki. Naruto's attention was obtained by Polly running out of the ship interior, bumping him out of the way of the wheel so that he could steer himself. And on the ground Naruto looked up at the shipwright in alarm, noticing that Polly hadn't tapped the ashes from his lit cigar in his mouth in quite some time. Polly. What the? Where's the fire? Apparently we've got a meeting with some important folks. I've been on the Den Den Mushi with them since before we left and it turns out that they were in the area. Polly explained, maneuvering the ship in the appropriate direction indicated by his phone call. They said Uzumaki made them an offer that they're taking him up on. We're heading to meet them unless anyone else has any better ideas. An offer. Naruto thought to himself, trying to remember just what Polly was talking about until he remembered a certain group of people he had tried to get into contact with after the whole major mess at Eni's lobby. Oh. Those guys. He eventually exclaimed, remembering who he was talking about and snapping his fingers in realization. Yeah, let's go do that. The others aren't healed up either, so we should wait for them to get better before planning any forward moves anyway. Sometime later Kwai Island, it turned out that the meeting place really wasn't that far from Sabayati Archipelago, just a half a day away. So by sunset they had managed to reach the instructed locale. Miss Valentine, Yosaku, and Johnny were still hurt from Kizaru's attack, so they weren't going ashore, and they couldn't really be left alone. There needed to be a guard to watch over the ship and Byron was still green as to how things would work, thus this left Soren aboard when it was time to search for the meeting place. The entire island seemed to be foggy, thus Nojiko was at a marked disadvantage due to her reliability on her vision to be of use in battle. For this reason she stayed behind as well. Perona was not going to be joining anyone going anywhere she didn't have to or want to go. That was her right. Besides, she was still technically their prisoner anyway and prisoners should stay on the ship. They seemed to have never followed that rule from day one, and now their prisoner was actually making them do it. Odd. So this left 3 to go ashore, and 2 of them were sitting in a rowboat in cloaks as the rain fell gently on the foggy waters of a river inlet. Thus far the island seemed to be a lot of jungle, with quite a few rivers that were turned into the main transportation method of the place. Every house seemed to be built along the riverside with thatched roofs, some stacked onto others so that none were really built into the jungle, a jungle that looked mostly untouched. One of the 2 figures in the rowboat happened to be rowing, while the other simply seemed to be sitting with a hat on their head to cover their head from the rain in addition to their hood. From the other hooded figure smoke could be seen emitting from the front of their cloak as they kept rowing. A female voice was singing softly, though her voice was able to echo out clearly as the boat kept traversing the river, ping underneath a bridge until on the other side a third person was sitting in the boat with them, getting the woman to stop. The man that had taken up a seat so suddenly on their boat had long hair in a thick dark braid down his back, a Fu Manchu mustache and a goatee, and a pair of sungles on his forehead. He wore an open black kung fu shirt with black pants that had a red sash and black martial artist shoes. Sitting on the boat calmly with one leg crossed over the other, he addressed the now silent woman. That song that you were singing is from Alabasta in its origin. Now who do we know with someone from Alabasta on board their ship? In response to this, the woman took off her hat, still keeping her hood on due to the rain, but it was enough to reveal the soft eyes and blue bangs of Vivi, OCP-9 San. She said calmly, I am. Yes, I know. Nefertari Vivi. He said before grinning at the girl almost like a wolf. There wasn't much time for introductions at Eni's lobby, what with all of the running and the fighting and the buster call and whatnot. However, for the purpose of identification you can call me Jabura. Oi, stop messing with the girl. The oarsman of the boat said gruffly as smoke plumed out from underneath his cloak hood as the fog got thicker for a bit. She's not even indecently dressed here, so there's no reason to be drooling all over her. Show some CL. Jabura turned around towards the man and let out a few chuckles, and you must be Polly. His amusement then faded, but you're not Uzumaki. I thought that he would be here, this is what you told us over the Den Den Mushi. Where is he? The fog faded out a bit and sitting right next to Jabura was Naruto, just as comfortably as the CP9 member was. When he realized that Naruto was sitting right next to him he almost jumped away with a bit of a start. Grr, how did you get that close to me? A shrug came from Naruto, who was also wearing a cloak, just with the hood down to expose his facial features and his bright blonde hair. With all the fog you didn't notice a shunshin. Seriously, the air had the consistency of soup on this island, so we're here. What do you want? Nodding in agreement, Polly puffed out some cigar smoke before placing it back in his mouth. Yeah, what exactly did you want that you couldn't say over the phone? Jabura growled at the two males of the Foxhound pirate crew in attendance before answering, you idiots. Who knew if the Marines could have been listening in? They can break into Den Den Mushi transmissions. He let out a sigh and snatched the oar from Polly before deciding to steer the boat himself. Naruto, Vivi, and Polly were taken to a house at the far end of a branching river away from the main waterways of the island, with more overgrowth over the water that seemed a more treacherous spot for people to take up residence. No wonder it was where CP9 chose to hide out on this island. Underneath an awning sitting on the front porch of the place as the boat of the visitors floated up, the long-nosed, black cap and black suit wearing Kaku stopped sharpening his four swords and stood up to get a better look through the fog until he could identify just who it was coming his way. Here, Jabura said as they reached the house and tied the boat to the sturdy frame that sat in the water and held the house up over the edge of the river. This is where we're staying for the duration of our time on this island. While Vivi and Polly climbed up the ladder presented to them to reach the porch of the house, Naruto just jumped up it. Wow. You guys built this place. Half of us were considered some of the best shipwrights in the world at one time. Kaku said, crossing his arms over his chest as he observed Naruto looking around the scenery of the area. We can learn how to build a house. Of course he was then punched across the face by Polly once he reached Kaku, hard enough to get the man to stumble back a few steps before turning to look at his former fellow shipwright as dispionately as ever. I expected that. I told you I was going to do it. Polly said, shaking his hand out from the punch. Oh, and you're fired. I know. Kaku deadpanned. The green-haired swordsman Zoro told me after he beat me. He then motioned for them to follow him inside. Come with me. The others are waiting. Upon entering the house, the eyes of the remaining CP9 members Khalifa, Bluno, Kumadori, Fukuro, Bluno, and Rob Lucci locked onto the visiting Foxhound pirates while they were lounging about around the room. Even though she had gotten stronger, Vivi was still quite unnerved to be in a room with a group of noted ins that had almost managed to kill her friends in the past. On the other hand, Polly just looked around and pointed out at Khalifa and Lucci. You're fired, and you're fired. He stated bluntly, getting Naruto to palm his face. Yes, we know. Khalifa responded, adjusting her glees on her face as she stood up with her hands on her hips, but we no longer have any problems with your crew or with Nico Robin. Your captain knows this. Call me Naruto. Naruto chimed in, sick of not being referred to by his name or by people saying, Captain when speaking of him. If they were going to do that, then they had to say his whole name to go with it. He then noticed that Rob Lucci hadn't taken his eyes off of him in particular since he had walked in the door. Of course, when Naruto spoke with the CP9 members after their escape from Eni's lobby, Lucci had seemed the most suspicious of him out of the group. There was no expression on the man's face as he seemed to be staring him down to look for something. Naruto narrowed his eyes and started staring right back. Vivi tugged on Naruto's poncho after she realized that the defeat intent smoldering in the room happened to be coming from the two of them. His attention obtained by the desert-dwelling princess who was giving him one of those looks of hers with her big brown eyes, Naruto let his little pissing contest with Rob Lucci end with a sigh. Alright, so what did you guys call me for? The large and rotund Fukuro unzipped his wide mouth and began to speak. We wish for your help, Chipapa. Help. Polly lit a new cigar and placed it in his mouth with a scoff. You're actually asking for help. You've got a lot of nerve, don't you? What in the world do you need help with anyway? We want your help to find Spandam. Lucci stated bluntly, not taking his eyes off of Naruto, our old leader. He's been sending Marines to try and exterminate us. We can't accept that. Leader. Vivi then remembered the guy in the leather mask that she saw on the Tower of Justice, only having seen him once. He was the only one of CP9 that wasn't currently there, and she also remembered the last time she saw him. There's no way your old leader's still alive. She said with a bit of a distasteful frown. Soren kind of made a tidal wave of acid and hit him with it when he was trying to escape. He's alive. Lucci replied a bit defensively, switching his rather cold gaze over to Vivi who froze like a small animal being stared at by a predator. Naruto moved in between them, breaking Lucci's vision of Vivi, prompting him to continue. We know this for a fact. He has pinned the blame for activating the Buster Call on Eni's lobby on us. The fool mistakenly triggered it while we were transporting Nico Robin to the gates of justice. Huh. Well, someone Soren actually got a better than decent SWAT defeat survived. That was new. It would probably be better to not let him know that though, because he might take that as a personal challenge. So, Polly said, sort of lost as to what was being asked of them, what do you want from us? We don't know where he is. Neither do we. Bluno stated, just as lost as the shipwright, but we know where a man who does know is. And we want your help in capturing and interrogating him. To do this we'll need to attack a marine base. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Naruto cut him off, waving his hands in front of himself. You want me to take my crew and start a fight on purpose for no reason with the Marines? At a marine base. He let out a skeptical laugh. I'm not picking a fight with the Marines for no reason. If I'm doing this, there had better be a way to get it done without my people getting hurt and me having to take out a whole base full of people. He was down with a fight, most certainly he was. Anyone that had been around him for longer than an hour would know that. But a real, true blue battle just for the chaos, just because he wanted to antagonize a fighting force, it wasn't his thing. Not at all. You and your fake bleeding heart. Lucci said right out, standing up to Naruto in his tall, black suit frame and walking right over to him. You killed how many Marines during the Buster call? And you have a problem with this, taking down less. It has to be you. If we were to take him they would know that it was us, even if it went off without a hitch. Narrowing his eyes at Lucci, Naruto let out a bit of a growl. You want me to kidnap some guy and interrogate him? I want Spandam gone too for what he did to Robin-chan and so many other people, but taking out innocent people is stepping over the line. At this point Khalifa interjected again. What makes you think we're asking you to take an innocent man? If anything, this man is more responsible for Nico Robin's original woes than anyone else in the world. He called in the original Buster Call attack that makered everyone on her home island of Ohara, a land of unarmed scholars. What? That little bit of info got Naruto's clear and undivided attention, seriously. Oh, they knew they were messing with his propensity to want to set certain things right, and it was getting really tempting. Yes. Khalifa confirmed with a terse nod. Spandam's father Spandine, this is the man we wish for you to obtain for our interrogation benefit. I'll interrogate him too. That little added amendment to his own request got everyone in the room to look at him strangely. What? If I let you CP9 guys do it, you'll tear him apart if he doesn't tell you what you want. I don't have to do that. At least I can leave him in one piece. And as long as he was adding things on, and Spandam too. You guys can't look for Spandam just to murder him. If you do that. Before he could finish his statement he was cut off by a feral-sounding snarl from Lucci. I've had it up to here with you. You're just like us, but you try to insist to be something you're not. You'll tell us not to kill the man that wronged us, but what have you done? The first thing you did to net yourself any infamy was to destroy the Arlong pirates of the East Blue. Where was your no-murdering policy then? That was a battle. Naruto stated firmly. I told Arlong to leave Nami and Kami Island alone. He and his crew fought me. I didn't innate him. I don't to those. He came at me until the very end. And I didn't kill them all. I've seen one of them that survived and I know that others did too. It's not like I can drown a fishman. Now what he did to that Nezumi guy afterwards was something else entirely for letting it all happen for so many years. A kill is a kill in the end. At this point Lucci was as close to face with Naruto as he could be since he was taller than Naruto by a few inches. I don't think it matters to the men you killed that you did it with honor. If you're saying that you won't help us get the information that we need, then we'll get it ourselves. It's not smart. Naruto tried to insist. I can help you get the dispatch to take you down taken away. I'll do that. But I'm not helping you just murder somebody. That'll only make things worse for you. Then we'll deal with it. There just wasn't any breaking Rob Lucci of what he wanted. You're not responsible for us. Probably the mark of someone that hadn't had to follow anyone else's orders for a long time, finally getting a taste of doing what he really wanted. But the responsibility thing wasn't true at all. Naruto was the one that let them go on St. Poplar after the battle at Eni's lobby. If he simply let them go and run amok just to find Spandam, a lot of Marines would die. It wasn't just about Spandam. Once his father got pinched he'd know they were coming, and once that happened he'd put every bit of manpower he had behind keeping himself safe. But they were adults. And he was done trying to circumvent someone's need for vengeance directly. It never really ended that well for him or the others. He'd try to coax them off of it the way he was trying to do with Soren, but in the end it was their choice. All he could do was run damage control. And that meant he'd be getting and interrogating Spandine. At least that way he could make sure the body count stayed as low as possible and didn't turn into a macker. Fine. Naruto eventually conceded, throwing his hands in the air and walking away from Lucci. I'll do it. I'll grab the old guy, find out what he knows, and then I'll tell you. Do what you want from there. But I want a favor from you jerks in return, understood? Are we good? It took a moment, but CP9 gave him nods all around. With that, Khalifa walked forward and handed Naruto an eternal pose. This will lead you to the G3 Marine base where Spandine is stationed. He would normally be at G1, Marineford, but the coward doesn't want to be anywhere near there these days. For the same reason he's there, you won't find anyone powerful there in case you are discovered. No one strong. Not even the guy running the base. What kind of weird crap was that? It was senseless, and Vivi pointed this out. Why wouldn't there be anyone strong there? It's a Marine base on the Grand Line. Jabura stroked his beard thoughtfully while answering the lovely young princess. Every officer in the Marines has been called to Marineford to fight the Whitebeard pirates. There's no one worth a watching these bases now. From here we were able to spy on the ships leaving for G1. Spandine is there to take over for the duration of the war, planning to head back to HQ once the trouble is over. So we have a window. Naruto said with a sigh, running his hand through his hair before motioning for Vivi and Polly to head to the door. Fine. I'll get it done. But remember that you all owe me one later. As his other two crew members left, Naruto himself stopped at the door and turned back around after gathering enough nature chakra for a sage mode show of force. Lucci, if you ever try picking a fight with me again, I'll drag you out and dunk your head under the water until you realize who I am. Even if you're stronger than you were when you fought Luffy, you aren't stronger than me. I promise. With that he slammed the door shut and left. Lucci's fists tightened until he had drawn blood from his palms. He eventually simply returned to his seat as if nothing had ever happened in the first place, as if his hands weren't bleeding down his arms and on his sleeves. Good thing he was wearing black fabric. On board the natural disaster common area, things were calm on board the ship that was just offshore from Kwai Island, something that was very necessary after the whole breakdown at Sabayati Archipelago and then the events which had taken place on their ship during their escape. Yosaku, Johnny, and Miss Valentine were on the mend, with Johnny suffering the lightest amount of injuries. Murat was exhausted from working on them for hours and was sleeping in her room next to the medic bay. Perona had finally decided to come back up and hang around the common area along with Nojiko, Soren, and Byron, who was still getting used to the way things were around the ship. Is this all that you do when there's nothing else going on? He asked, now changed out of his ragged older clothes into a fresher white dress shirt with a ruffled collar and sleeves and black dress pants, given to him courtesy of the other crew members. How maddening. You should take up recreational drinking. Soren remarked from the kitchen where he was grabbing a snack that could go well enough with pure lemon juice. It does wonders for me. Sometimes I can't tell if the sun is up or not. Now that's interesting. Off to the side, sitting on her own couch, Nojiko was busying herself reading a newspaper that had been delivered onto the ship before they had disembarked from the ship coating facility that she hadn't had the time to thumb through beforehand due to all of the running and the fighting and whatnot. Crap. Nojiko said after reading a particular bit of news in the paper. Well, I know why Whitebeard's coming after the Marines right at Marineford now. She said, choosing to recant the news right to them. Somehow they got Portgas d'Ace. Fire Fist, Ace. Whitebeard's 2nd Division commander. That managed to startle Soren out of the kitchen. What? Who managed to get that guy? He remembered actually meeting Ace in Alabasta with Naruto when the two were schlepping across the desert to catch up with the others. Fire Fist Ace is powerful. Who beat him? The new Shichibukai. Nojiko said with a frown as she kept reading, and it says he's supposed to be executed publicly at Marineford. God. That's just, wow. Poor Luffy. And they weren't answering any calls on their Den Mushi either, so Luffy must have been feeling it. She'd called 3 times to make sure that they were alright, but no one was throwing a Haraishin kunai for Naruto either, so that meant something positive, didn't it? Whitebeard's gonna rip that place to shreds. Perona commented idly from her spot where she was sitting, near the hull leading further into the ship. You know about the people on Whitebeard's cruise, don't you? It's like a gathering of boogeymen all in one place when you throw that in with the top BR of the Marines and the Shichibukai. Wait, but Perona's captain was a Shichibukai. That was supposed to mean something that Nojiko pointed out. Don't you want to go back with your captain now? If you think the Shichibukai are going to be there, there's no chance I'm walking into ground zero of that. Perona snapped in return, looking affronted at the suggestion. Even if I could survive that of a mess long enough to get back to Mariah-sama, the Marines don't treat Shichibukai crews like the rest of the Shichibukai. They see me as a normal pirate, or didn't you notice that on Constellation Island? They'd go right at me. Shut up. A muffled yell of irritation from Murat echoed out from the walls. I've got sleeping patients and a sleeping me. You all didn't spend the last 6 hours running all over the place trying to treat any wounded, so shush. For some reason the least dangerous person on the ship seemed to scare the rest of them into silence and stillness until the walls settled down again. Looking around as if it would reveal that things were all clear, Byron ventured a comment. So, what now? Everyone looked at each other shrugging haplessly until the door to the captain's quarters was opened as Vivi and Polly walked out, a little overwhelmed it seemed after traveling in Naruto's Hiraishin no Jutsu because they were stumbling down the hall back to their own rooms. Alright people, tomorrow morning we're setting out on a quick mission. Get some sleep. I've got to talk to some important folks about something. With that he shut his door. Well, that was abrupt. Soren blinked before downing his mug of pure lemon juice as if it were nothing. Well, you heard the man. There's your answer. With that he walked back down towards his own room, but stopped short at Nojiko. Was it just me or did Uzumaki seem, I don't know, aggravated? They didn't notice the plume of smoke that blew out from underneath Naruto's door. Smack. Ow. Exclamation mark quote. Smack. Serves ya right for not thinkin' ta summon us for so long, Naruto-chan. Ya summoned those tadpoles Gamakichi and Gamatatsu but not us. You've got some nerve. And watch her mouth. Kami, why does that still hurt so much? Pa, make her stop. I'd help ya out Naruto-chan, but you kinda had this comin' for a while. All of the crew members just stared at the door where it sounded like Naruto was being beaten up and scolded by an old lady while failing miserably to plead his own case in the process, though no one decided to get up and intervene, instead all choosing to get up and scatter to their own rooms to retire for the evening. Just when they thought that Naruto was as weird as he was going to get, stop hitting me. I'm an adult, Datbayo. Smack. Not ta us ya ain't. Yeah, they weren't going anywhere near that. Chapter 41. Nostalgia kills. The cursing and yelling that had occurred from Naruto's quarters all night long had been thoroughly ignored by his loyal, faithful crew. Mostly because many of the shouts were from Naruto and they were cries of pain occurring after sounds of a blow landing happened. Even a ways down the hall in the rooms of the others they could all hear it. But curiosity was not going to kill any of these cats. No way, no how. Naruto was weird, and if he was okay with letting something beat him up there was no way any of them were going to get involved. Thus it was of no surprise the next morning when the awakened Foxhound pirate crew found Naruto sitting in something of a pouting position on a couch in the common area, face covered in bruises and bandages and a perturbed look on his face as if he were merely tolerating the beatdown that had given him his light, yet still annoying, flesh wounds. Yosaku was still asleep and resting at Mirai's behest due to his injuries suffered during the battle with Kizaru the previous day, but other than that the whole crew eventually made their way in the room where their captain was being unusually quiet, at least until they all got there and got comfortable. Eventually everyone had made it in the room, including Karu who wasn't missing this for the world. Taking note of the uncharacteristic morning silence where it was usually pretty rowdy, Naruto looked around and let out a sigh before speaking up. Okay, go ahead. Immediately, everyone's hands swelled up as if they were schoolchildren being asked to answer a question by their teacher. Even Karu raised a wing up. Rolling his eyes at how they could get excited over yet another weird thing that seemed to happen to them almost daily, Naruto pointed at his first mate to ask the inaugural question of this impromptu Q&A session, something that Soren did without beating around the bush at all. What the was going on in your room last night? If you're into getting your kicks by getting beaten up you could at least have a girl do it. Thinking about what you'd like Tashigi to do to you, Soren. I will melt a woman Valentine. Ignoring the usual teasing banter between the sunny blonde woman and the angry tattoo-faced borderline sociopath, Naruto decided to break it up and get down to business. That was a greeting. Yeah, a greeting from some friends I haven't seen in a while. Perona raised an eyebrow as the bored ghost princess had her ghosts floating around the room for random kicks. What kind of greeting has you getting a butt kicking and takes 6 hours to finish? You're seriously underestimating just how long it's been since I've seen these friends of mine. Naruto deadpanned. He hadn't been to Mount Mayuboku in over 10 years, he was certain. But that was right, Perona didn't know that he was old as dirt yet. Well, what she didn't know wasn't important as far as that went. What friends? Vivi queried aloud from her seat. We came back with you and we didn't bring anyone from Kwai Island. Naruto had never even been that far on the Grand Line before anyway, so what friends could he have possibly been talking about? Well, it was time to introduce his crew to a new cavern of weirdness in the mountain of odd that was Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto cupped his hands to his mouth and turned around to the closed door of his quarters before yelling, "Ma! Pa! Wake up already!" He hadn't slept all night because after the beatdown the Toad couple had commandeered his bed for the remainder of the evening. It took a moment before a series of clomps emanated from Naruto's room along with some elderly male and female muttering, and everyone's jaw dropped because of what Naruto had called them. Ma and Pa. Naruto had parents. Naruto had parents that were alive. God, how old were they? Nojiko started freaking out quietly in her own mind. Naruto-kun's parents. I'm going to meet his parents. Oh no, what if they don't like me? What if they think I'm not good enough or smart enough or strong enough to be his girlfriend? She was silently throwing a nervous fit at coming face to face with them. No, they'll probably think I'm too young before anything else because Naruto-kun's super old. The door swung open and a small blur flew across the room to smack against the back of Naruto's head hard enough to jerk his entire body forward in a violent lurch. Me and Pa ain't as young and as spry as you, ya tadpole. We can't operate off a 2 hours of sleep. Naruto growled as upon getting hit his hand had immediately flown up to catch the blur that had hit him before it could get away. Well, maybe if you hadn't spent the entire night beating Ma you could have gotten more sleep. Where's Pa? He's right there looking at her little friends. What are ya, blind? Immediately Naruto looked down on the floor in front of where his crew was sitting Embly style and blinked. Oh. The rest of his crew followed suit and saw a clothed and very old-looking Toad carrying a staff looking up at them appraisingly, as if looking for merit in each of them. It was weird, so the lot of them just stared back, no one really blinking until the Toad smiled at them and turned towards Naruto. Naruto-chan, you've got a good set of friends here. I'm glad you're finally keeping around people again. Being a real hermit wasn't really right fair, ya. You were too young to be considering such a thing. Quote. Young. Soren whispered in disbelief. Didn't Uzumaki say he was like 120 or something? Whack. Ow. What was that for this time? Naruto complained and whined when Shima hit him again. I didn't even do anything. What did I tell ya about keeping track of time? Shima scolded at the glaring Naruto. Don't give me that look. Or not 120, or did ya forget? I was rounding. To what? To whatever sounded coolest. I told everybody I stopped counting my age. Whack. Hit me again and I'm dismissing you, Ma. Shaking his head at his wife's loving discipline of Naruto, Fukasaku turned towards the confused crew and explained what the problem was. He's not even 100 years old. It hasn't been that long. He just doesn't keep track of the years anymore. He's more like 90 at the most. Keeping track of time is useless if I can't die of old age. I forgot. Naruto defended weakly. I might as well be older. It doesn't matter. What's the difference? Old is old. Keeping track of years for no reason when he wasn't doing anything was boring. It would have only served to bum him out after his friends died, so why do it at all? He was then forced to dodge a gunswow from Nojiko, who was looking at him with a perturbed expression on his face. What? You're mad? He asked, hiding behind his chair that now had a bullet hole in it. 30 years is something significant, Naruto. Nojiko snapped at him, spinning her pistol around on her finger to try and calm down. God, why did he have to be such a dumb about certain things? How do you forget how old you are? It's actually harder than ya think after ya get past 500 years old. Fukasaku chimed in, attempting to defend Naruto at least a little bit. Things just start smoshing together. Naruto smirked and set his chin on the top of the chair as he looked at everyone else in the room. The senility doesn't help either, I'm sure. A staff smacked him right in the face and knocked him to the floor. It was still worth it. Seeing an opening that she just couldn't pee up because she never got the chance to do so, Murat interjected calmly with a falsely curious tone in her voice, "Naruto-sama, does that mean you're senile then? You're certainly old enough to show the symptoms." Ha! Polly barked with a laugh from his place by the open window as he smoked a cigar. "I like it." Oi! Naruto jumped back up in a bit of a fuss. "I keep my mental mind extra secure. No problems here. You better watch yourself, pretty lady," he warned with a point in Mireille's direction only to get her sticking out her at him in response. Where'd the respect go? Before things could spiral more out of control and further the lunacy of the lot of them, Vivi put a stop to it and got things back on track by stooping down by the pair of elderly toads, looking at them curiously. "Are you really Naruto's parents?" It seemed like a dumb question, but at this point she wasn't going to say that nothing was possible anymore. "How does that work?" Naruto answered that question for her benefit. "Ma and Pa aren't my parents, Vivi Heim. They're the elder toads of the clan that I can summon. Everyone just calls them that out of respect. I called them here because I needed their advice on something. So they're probably going to be here for a while until I get it sorted out." Fukasaku extended a small hand Vivi's way with a smile on his face. "It's nice to meet ya, dear. Good to see Naruto-chan's friends are such nice people. And, such a cute little thing too." He ignored Soren's scoff at them being nice people as the Princess of Alabasta shook his hand and blushed at being complimented by a toad. "Gotta flirt with the pretty young girl, don'tcha?" Shima said, getting Fukasaku to freeze up before letting go of Vivi's hand and backing away. A few seconds later, two summons were rushing all over the ship, one chasing the other with intent to harm. "Yeah," Naruto said with a dry look on his face as he peered over his crew, "so just don't make either of them mad, especially Ma, and they won't hit you. They're actually really nice. Now let's go. We've got a mission to do today. Come on Soren, we've got plans to make." With a shrug, Soren hopped up from his seat and followed the blonde man outside towards the helm so he could start breaking down what they were going to do that day. As Naruto left the room, Miss Valentine got up to begin making breakfast for everyone on board as she asked a question that more than a few of them had been wondering since the previous night. "So, what's this mission supposed to be anyway?" Later that day, G3 Marine Base. G3's base sat on an island right by a small town. It consisted of a large fortress with several blue camouflaged towers surrounding one larger tower in the middle, each tower with all kinds of artillery pointed out towards the ocean with varying destructive power. Waiting at the front docks were the usual cadre of Marines that would oversee the arrival of any ship that would be docking at their base. As they had seen a ship on the horizon on their way flying the world government insignia on their sail, it was curious as to why a call wasn't given from the vessel letting them know of their arrival. The routine-looking marine vessel had landed and off of the ship came several regularly uniformed Marines that lined up at the end of the gangplank. Routine surprise inspection of the G3 Marine Base. "If you could go and inform your highest-ranking officer of this, we can begin." The gathered Marines of the G3 base looked confused. "An inspection? Now, shouldn't resources be shifted to something more useful, like going to Marineford? Things are getting crazy nowadays. What better time to conduct an inspection than a time like this?" queried one of the visiting Marines that had stepped off of the ship. "And the others just didn't have the answer for that. Our captain will be inside soon enough. I would inform the other Marines here to be prepared for an inspection as well." With a nod, the G3 Marines walked off to head towards the office of the commander of the base, leaving the visitors behind. An inspection at a time when Whitebeard was just about to take on Marineford itself to get Fire Fist Ace free. That was certainly unexpected to say the least. Kind of a jerk move too to do something like that when everyone was nervous that the Marines could possibly lose to the Whitebeard fleet. No one wasn't on edge at that point in time. But whether it was cool or not, it was still happening. Once they were out of sight, the several visitors all shared the same toothy, roguish grin between themselves. "Oh, I can't believe that actually worked." "I know, right?" one of the other visiting Marines said as he pointed his thumb back at their ship. "I wonder how long a clone can hold a henge on something as big as the whole ship. If we hadn't done that, we'd have had to fight our way through 1,000 Marines or something." Another Marine let out a loud whistle with a particular cadence that prompted two blurs to leap from the deck onto the docks, where they began quickly streaking towards the G3 main building. Inside the G3 Marine Base main tower, An inspection. A man with hair that was gray and balding on the top and black and lush in the back said. He had a square jaw with a long goatee and wore a black suit with a white coat over it. Ha, that's not bad Sengoku, send out inspections to make sure no one's slacking. He bore a similar but more elderly appearance to Spandam if one had seen both of them before. The prospect of an inspection didn't seem like a problem at all though. If anything, he seemed excited at the thought of some government representative checking over the base while he was there. While he had no actual permanent authority over the base, he was the highest ranking person there for as long as he was. Thus if G3 performed well during the inspection he would get a good word in about his ability to lead, and that would probably lead to a promotion. Send the men back to their quarters to prepare for inspection. Spandine ordered the Marines that had come to his office to inform him of the current situation. I want everything picture perfect, my promotion depends on it. He rubbed his hands together in gleeful anticipation. G3 always did great during inspections, so he could grab some credit without even having done anything. Elsewhere inside of the G3 Marine base, I'm gonna burn this outfit when this is over. Soren said with a very angry, seething voice. He was wearing a normal Marine uniform that consisted of navy blue pants, a white sleeveless button-up shirt, and a white cap on his head. To cover up the red tribal tattoo that ran down the side of his face and corresponding arm, Soren was also wearing some of Miss Valentine's makeup. I'm gonna burn you too for making me wear makeup Uzumaki. Blah, blah, blah. It's so no one can tell that it's you. Naruto said. Makeup on his own whisker marks and wearing his own complete Marine uniform with an additional white Marine's coat. All I know is I've got this kick jacket on. If it survives the day I'm keeping it. Every captain needs a good coat like this. Thank goodness there was still tons of Marine clothing on board the natural disaster left over from when Naruto first salvaged the ship. Perfect for disguises for everyone on his crew. He was the only one that could henge. Soren gave Naruto a distasteful look as he eyed the Sage Ninja's extra clothing. You'd wear a Marine coat. I'll get rid of the Marine emblem on the back. Naruto replied as if it were obvious. It's the principle of the matter. I'd rather wade through a sewer than wear this crap. I'll remember that. They walked along until their pathways in the hall were impeded by two men wearing suits underneath open Marine coats that were D-bad over their shoulders like capes. One of them had a yellow and black striped suit and had combed back black hair and a handlebar mustache. The other wore a solid white suit and had said back gray hair. He had a scar over one eye and wore sungles while chomping on a cigar. Naruto immediately snapped to a salute and elbowed Soren in the ribs to make him do the same, though a low growl was eliciting from the Foxhound pirate's first mate's throat at having to salute anyone, especially a Ed Marine. This was thankfully ignored as Naruto was composed enough to save some face for the two of them. Sir. Ah. The scar-faced Marine elite said, observing Naruto with a casual smile on his face, the word on your inspection has already spread across the base. The men are ready for the primary inspection of their quarters anytime, Captain. No rush. Well then we'll get right on that as soon as possible. Naruto looked towards Soren and gestured in a separate direction. We should split up. The two of us checking a single barrack would be a waste of time and resources. Soren nodded and the two prepared to walk away, but not before sparing one last salute to both men that were clearly higher than Naruto's fake rank of captain. With a nod of dismissal from the handlebar mustache having Marine, both Naruto and Soren took different hallways away from each other and from the real Marine elites. As the two faker Marines got further away, both of the real ones nodded to each other before suddenly vanishing from sight in blurs and rushing at both Naruto and Soren respectively while their backs were turned with intent to attack. Both Naruto and Soren had saluted with the wrong hand the second time. Meanwhile on board the natural disaster, tons of henged Naruto clones littered the decks doing sailor things to make it look like they were a legitimate Marine vessel to those that could observe them from the G3 base. The main Naruto clone that was holding the major transformation on the ship was sitting at the helm's bench and focusing to make sure the ship's true form didn't s. Thank goodness the ship was wired with arrays that allowed him to generate chakra on the ship's behalf. This whole thing could have turned into a smaller scale Enies Lobby situation had that not been the case. Much of the Foxhound pirate crew was allowed to walk around because they had Marine disguises on, but for some people like one Nefertari Vivi, it was too dangerous for her to be out even in false uniform. If the Marines knew who any of them would be on site, it would definitely be the kidnapped and brainwashed Princess of Alabasta. So she simply sat around on her bed in her room accompanied by Kaoru as usual, but this time also with Shima as well. Perhaps to keep Fukusaku from spending his free time with the beautiful young princess, but then again that would be a losing battle anyway because there was still Miss Valentine and Nojiko elsewhere on board. Verona too, but she was the most disengaged of the lot, possibly because she was still technically a prisoner of sorts and had no connection to any of them. But Shima was at least regaling her with things about the elemental nations when she had asked about what Naruto's home had been like. The captain of the crew was still a pretty big mystery background-wise. So there are thousands of people that can do the things that Naruto can do. She was quite certain that she'd heard it from the mouth of the man directly, but it was still shocking to hear that fact more or less confirmed. That's terrifying. Not quite, dear. It was quite nice for Shima to meet new people, especially ones as nice as the people on Naruto's crew. She wasn't sure about the angry bald one with the tattoo going down his face and arm because he looked like a hoodlum, nor about the blonde shipwright that smoked all the time, and not really about the pink-haired girl that dressed so strangely, but everyone else was just fine. Naruto-chan's kinda the strongest ninja we're gonna see, especially these days. Maybe back in the old days it'd be scarier, but it's a pretty peaceful land nowadays. No wars in over 80 years and none in sight. Because of Naruto. Vivi stated, as apparently Naruto had kept the peace by overseeing things with no allegiance to any one ninja village. A sigh came from Shima as she nodded and hopped to Vivi's side on her bed. Well, he had a big enough hand in keeping it that way. It was a tough shake for him when he started, especially when the next generation started feeling entitled. Couldn't go to any hidden village, and he'd made so many good friends in more than a few of them too. He had us, and he still saw a few of them every decade or so, but that wasn't the same. He stayed on the mountain amongst the toads a lot, for years at a time, and then he would go out and venture about to make sure everything was still fine in the elemental nations before returning after a few more years. During the most recent of these ventures he apparently got bored of the monotony and went out to sea. And good for him for doing so. For the first time in a long time he actually had some life back in those eyes of his. Before leaving he only really trained so that his skills didn't atrophy. He honestly didn't have any reason to keep trudging on. But now he found something that he was looking for, and he just so happened to find more people to care about. Speaking of which, Miss Valentine walked directly into Vivi's room, also dressed in a normal Marine's outfit as if she were showing it off. I really hate these clothes, but I make even this look good, right? She said before letting out a bit of a laugh and calming down. So what exactly are you two doing in here? Miss Valentine knew that Vivi was bored to death just sitting inside of her room, but it would only be a little bit before they left and she could come out again, hopefully. Just here talking with little Haim-chan here, trying to keep her company a bit. Shima said, reaching out and patting the girl on the arm. She's a nosy one, asking about Naruto-chan a lot. Oh really now? Vivi averted her eyes from Miss Valentine as the blonde cook of the crew had her grin grow 3 times wider. Taking a seat on the other side of Vivi on her bed she wrapped an arm around Vivi's shoulder and leaned towards Shima. Nojiko says Vivi has a crush on Naruto. Does she now? That's so cute. Beginning to sputter indignantly, Vivi regained her composure and glared at Miss Valentine with a pout. Why do you both keep saying that? Naruto was my teacher for a while, and he's a kind enough person to help me out of the jam he did back after Crocodile was defeated, so what's wrong with actually wanting to find out what makes him the way he is? You can't tell me you're not curious about him. Nope, I'm not. Kyahahaha. Miss Valentine swowed down Vivi's point, almost getting her to fall forward off of his bed. Who he used to be doesn't matter at all. It's who Naruto is now that ever mattered to me. She said matter-of-factly, just look at me. If you cared who I used to be you'd want me dead for being a part of Baroque works. Well it's the same way for me. Whatever he did in the past is irrelevant as far as I'm concerned. Shima nodded sagely at Miss Valentine's own viewpoint of the past before she addressed the woman. Naruto-chan's been with you and the Nojiko girl already, hasn't he? Blinking in surprise at the curious question, Miss Valentine still managed to nod her head in confirmation. Thought so. I'm gonna crack his head when he gets back on this ship. Shima muttered angrily as she hopped down off of Vivi's bed and walked out of the room to elsewhere on the vessel, letting girls on like some kinda playboy. After she left, Vivi pointed at the now empty doorway that Shima had exited through. Naruto's just letting Shima-san beat him up, right? Like how he lets Nojiko shoot at him and hit him with her pistol. I'm not sure really. Miss Valentine replied. I haven't been sure about a lot of things since we started going further on the Grand Line. I just stopped caring. It does wonders for your nerves to stop worrying about what's normal or what's supposed to happen. Apparently anything's possible. Vivi swiveled around and lay down on her bed staring up at the ceiling. Feeling like getting one last jab in, she gave Vivi a few pats on the stomach before standing up to leave, anything including you getting the guts to try and put a move on. She didn't get to finish her joke before having to hightail it out of there when Vivi reached for her sharply jeweled weapon of a belt threateningly. Her laughter still echoed down the hallway. Jerk. Vivi flatly declared, sticking out her at the no longer present Miss Valentine only to get a loud quack from Karu, who was giving her a rather pointed look from his own personal bed. Oh, be quiet you. She said, rather red-faced at whatever her personal pet had been implying. G3 Marine Base Main Tower Spandine's office. Was it just him or did he feel the ground shake? Ah, it must have been the world government inspectors testing one of the cannons. Spandine had no worries there. He was quite sure that they would find absolutely nothing amiss with their long-range weaponry, and that would mark up more points for him when word got back and it was time to hand out kudos. He couldn't wait. He wasn't sure how much higher up the world government totem pole someone like him could go, but he'd be testing that all the way. And if not him, he'd have to make sure Spandam did once he recovered from his grisly injuries suffered during the Ennie's lobby incident. Another shake. Well, it was none of his concern. Until the inspectors came to interview him directly, the two vice admirals there that had been planning to ship out from there to Marineford the next day could do one last simple thing like that. With Naruto southern courtyard of G3 Marine Base, everything was cool, and then all of a sudden all broke loose. What went wrong? There was no way that those two guys in the hall figured out who they were like that. They didn't even look like the same people that there were bounties on. Soren looked like completely different person with his tattoo covered and his bald head and odd ears hidden underneath his marine cap. Naruto himself, without the whisker marks and his own hair covered underneath a cap, only had blue eyes as a distinguishable trait. How was someone that never met him going to tell who he was by his eyes? Either way, that wasn't relevant. Right now there were two options present to him. He could either cut and run and abandon the mission, or he could face off with the scar-faced, sungles-wearing, white suit sporting man before him, kick his as fast as he possibly could, and find Spandine. Screw subtlety, that ship had sailed already. On the man standing across from him in the open courtyard was a calm expression, a pair of wicked metal gloves on his hands with sharp claws that gleamed in the sunlight. The same weapons he had attacked Naruto from behind with. He wasn't a slouch either, as his initial attack was forceful enough to barrel Naruto straight through a wall, which led them to being outside to begin with. Naruto's face and the jacket that he liked were smudged with debris from the wall he had been sent through, and his hat was now long gone. Upon wiping his face, he revealed the whisker marks on his cheeks, and that was all that his enemy needed to see to know that he'd been right on with his suspicions. Uzumaki Naruto, I guess we can now add impersonation of a marine officer to your list of offenses. Oh come on. Naruto said with a grin as he took off the marine captain coat and wrapped it around his waist. It would have been bursome to fight while wearing it if it wasn't personalized for him, which it wasn't. He first picked it up all of 1 hour ago. It's not like doing something that minor would make my bounty go up anymore. And thank goodness, because it wasn't like he needed it. No, I suppose the kidnapping of a world government nation's princess, the defeat of a marine vice admiral, the case of your defeat of over 1,000 marines, and the rumors of you overcoming two of our current admirals that are swimming around amongst the top BR would be enough, the man said with a careful tone, but for pirates nothing is ever enough. I'm not it. Never mind, it doesn't matter right now. Naruto said, wishing he could have brought some weapons with him, at least some kunai for using Hiraishin in battle, but that would have blown his cover even sooner. There was nowhere to hide them, and scrolls would be inconvenient in case he had to fight someone that was actually good. You know who I am clearly, so that's all I need to know. The sound of metal sliding against metal rang out as the Marine elite flexed his fingers out in his metal gloves. Of course I know. Anyone that isn't aware of you and yours at this point can't possibly call themselves a vice admiral. He saw Naruto's raised eyebrow and confirmed what he had just said. Vice Admiral Cancer at your service. Naruto thought to himself. Yes, he had beaten Aokiji, who was a full admiral, in a battle to the finish, but that was in a fight that nearly killed him. While he figured he could beat Vice Admiral Cancer more handily, he wanted it to be with as little collateral damage as possible so that he could just leave. I need to make this fast. Cancer carefully adjusted his sungles on his face with his sharp metal claw gloves before rushing towards his enemy at a high speed, taking nothing for granted against Naruto. Presuming that it was his use of Soru, because Naruto had seen Aokiji do the same thing to move at an accelerated speed. He jumped back out of the way and was forced to keep back handspringing as far as he could go because of a long series of 4 claw markings being ripped into the ground that stretched outward from where Cancer had stricken the ground. Before Naruto could even begin to appraise and break down the technique, Cancer was back on him, bravely taking swings at his head and neck as if he were trying to slice his head off and just be done with it. Even without Sage Mode, Naruto still had the reflexes to dodge cleanly and respond with a kick that forced his opponent off of him. Without missing a beat, Naruto charged forward and formed a Rasengan in between his 2 hands with 4 white blade-like protrusions of chakra from it. Fuden, Rasengan, wind release, spiraling sphere. Cancer held his ground and struck back at Naruto with a double-handed downward slash. Both connected and a big explosion rippled through the courtyard, destroying much of the neatly paved ground and GRY landscape of it. In a pair of small craters stood both Naruto and Cancer, both having created them from the backlash of their own mostly stalemated attacks. So Vice Admirals really weren't a joke after all. Naruto was shaking some serious tingling out of his hands while Cancer was noting that his arms had cuts on them from the wind aspect of Naruto's Rasengan attack, so it's true. You really can punch through a person's Busoshoku haki with your own brute force. It hadn't been what he had been expecting from it though. To defeat someone like Aokiji, he would have needed to generate way more power. On the other hand, Naruto idly wondered how tough Vice Admiral Doberman would have been to fight during the Buster Call had he not simply obliterated the man's entire vessel with a Rasenshuriken instead of electing to fight him. There wasn't going to be any skipping the middleman this time, he was going to have to put this guy down the old-fashioned way. With 1/30th of his chakra as it was split 30 ways with the clones on the natural disaster. Lovely. So be it then. Time to get tricky. I don't see how any rumor of you defeating Admiral Aokiji started if this was all a direct attack from you could do. Cancer said, rolling his sleeves back down over his captain's coat to cover his wounds. You're strong no doubt to injure me through my haki, but any rank Vice Admiral and above is simply another league. Picking up a large slab of broken concrete from nearby, Naruto spun back around and hurled it at Cancer, who deftly diced it into segments with his claws only to find Naruto right behind what had once been a complete segment, Rariato, lariat. Naruto had his arm drawn back and slammed the length of it right across Cancer's upper chest with considerable force. He knocked the man back, but once again the living armor of his haki kept him from registering much damage as after sliding on his backside for a distance he got his feet back under himself and stood up. That one seemed to have less kick behind it than your last move. If there was one thing that was certain when it came to people of high ranking, it was that they hated it when that rank was disregarded, especially when they had worked their ass off for it the way Cancer more than likely had done for his entire life. While it left a sour taste in his mouth to do something like that when he knew what it was like to work hard for recognition, it was also something Naruto could use to fight in a different way. Tough talk from someone that only hit me once, and from behind too. Well, if you think I'm going to go into Sage Mode just to deal with a Vice Admiral, you're kidding yourself. I only save that for real challenges. If I fought you in Sage Mode, you wouldn't be awake right now to even judge how hard I hit you. This boy has a real mouth on him. Cancer thought irritably, chalking Naruto's words up to youthful disrespect. We'll see if your fighting skills actually measure up to that bounty of yours or if it's just because you're a loudmouthed anarchist. Naruto just beckoned him forward and stood in an even-legged stance, distributing his weight evenly before holding perfectly still. Come on then. One free swow. I won't move an inch from this spot, you can do whatever you want. Fool. Cancer said before using Soru to try and confound Naruto to his movements. That arrogance will get you killed if you're really going to go through with your boasting challenge. Naruto didn't move an inch from his spot though, still waiting patiently with a look of focus on his face. Finally choosing to strike, the Vice Admiral rushed at Naruto from blind spot that he felt Naruto couldn't respond to at a low to the ground angle and vaulted at him, changing levels and preparing to take out Naruto's head. To his surprise however, Naruto didn't even try to move and took the attack without flinching, before bursting into smoke. Also to his surprise, one of the stone slabs that he had cut out of the chunk that Naruto had thrown suddenly burst into smoke as well, and out came another Naruto with strange toad-looking eyes that had orange pigment around them. Naruto approached with a closing speed that Cancer never anticipated and he wasn't able to react and turn in time before Naruto reached him. The infamous Not Pirate slammed an open-handed strike directly in Cancer's face, sending violent ripples of natural energy directly into the point of contact. Kawazu Tataki, Frog Strike. The enhanced strength provided by Sage Mode, added to the natural energy he sent out in ripples into Cancer's body sent the man flying like a rocket, all the while he was shaking like a tuning fork as he was propelled through a wall, and another wall, several walls in all before coming to a stop. There was a satisfied look on Naruto's face as his Sage Mode faded and he dusted his hands off. He had only collected enough for one move when he transformed into a busted piece of concrete to give himself some free time and an opening to gather what he needed to knock his durable foe out cold. He also then realized that Cancer barely knew what had hit him if he knew at all when his clone was defeated to signify to him that the time to attack was then. Wow, had he really done that good of a job of keeping his clones under wraps in most fights against the world government that he could actually use just one to surprise an enemy so completely? Gazing around the completely ruined courtyard and the obliterated walls, Naruto decided to hastily make his way elsewhere before all broke loose, there. That didn't take that long. And I didn't do that much damage either. With Soren Western Tower of G3 Marine Base, he wasn't even going to waste his energy trying to use Tekai. It wasn't going to work at all, he was just going to get himself cut to ribbons. Vice Admirals and their Haki. Last time he had to fight Haoshoku Haki against Onagumo, well this time he had to deal with Busoshoku Haki. How did he know? Well when he was first attacked and Soren dodged his first attack, Soren was knocked back by the invisible force of the man's Haki. Soren found himself strictly on the defensive from the very start as the man in the yellow and black striped suit with the dark hair and the handlebar mustache had chosen him as his target in the hallway. Being chased through the area up long spiral stairs wasn't his idea of fun, but luckily they were nowhere near the barracks or he'd be getting chased by more than just one Marine. You're going to run out of stairs to climb eventually. Vice Admiral Stainless yelled Soren as he continued to pursue him with a katana in his hand, set on using it to cut pieces off of Soren should he reach him. Any decent officer can spot a fake Marine a mile away. Rolling his eyes at his powerful pursuer's words, Soren turned around and pulled down his eyelid tauntingly, more or less poking the bear, bet you run out first. Ebi no kawa, rot stream. Instead of firing his acid at Stainless, Soren puffed his cheeks out and sprayed a steady stream of acid from his mouth directly over his shoulder onto the stairs, getting Stainless to stop lest he mistakenly step in it and harm himself. Meanwhile Soren just kept running upstairs and melting the stairs behind him all the way. After his acid ran out he cackled to himself as he popped a quick vial of lemon juice to make sure he still had a good amount of acidic content in his body when he found himself on the roof of the tower with a large and powerful cannon nearby. As he peered over to the main tower, his rudimentary reasoning skills told him that the most important room in any place, such as the office of the guy that was in temporary command of the base, would be the highest part of the tallest building. Looking over to another tower he had to do a double take as he saw Naruto staring at the main tower as if he were thinking the same thing. It took a few moments for Naruto to feel the eyes of someone else on him and he turned to see Soren standing by a cannon. The first mate of the Foxhound crew pointed from the artillery weapon to the top of the middle tower and then to Naruto, only to get a confused and questioning tilt of the head from the ninja. He was trying to convey the message without yelling in order to maintain what little semblance of stealth they had left, but someone apparently didn't get the gist of rudimentary sign language. Got it. I'll shoot the tower with the ink cannon, you run up the wall and when the hole gets made you go in there and snatch the bad guy. God, was it that hard to get? Naruto wordlessly scowled back at him and gave him the middle finger before limbering up and running down his own tower. While he did this, Soren quickly located the cannonballs which were larger than normal to go with the size of the cannon itself and loaded it. As he turned it around, Naruto was already scaling the main tower at a high speed, putting him in a rush to aim and fire, blowing away the wall intended for Naruto to go through, which he did. He thought he heard a rather cowardly shriek come from the side of the hole that had just been made, which was impressive for it to be that loud that it reached him, but Soren had another problem to worry about once the roof beneath him inexplicably gave way, and he and the cannon on the roof fell down with a resounding crash to the lower levels of their tower. Soren managed to save himself from a catastrophic fall by getting a hold of the wall with his acid-enhanced fingernails that let him dig a handhold and slide down safely to an intact floor where he found Stainless already waiting for him standing by a cannon. This guy swam through several floors just to get me off of the roof and down to his level. Soren thought to himself as he tossed his marine hat aside and lost the sleeveless uniform top since there was no more need for it. You're a vice admiral, so why aren't you at Marineford? I'd have thought that the top BR would have wanted as many of you back as possible to deal with Whitebeard when he shows up looking to tear that place apart. We stopped here to pick up any Marine officer that G3 had in preparation for that battle, but we didn't think we'd wind up running into one of the most troublesome rookie crews on the sea. Stainless said, holding his katana in a traditional stance, so that begs the question of what you've come here to do. Choosing to not answer, Soren let a bead of sweat roll down his forehead. His last fight with a vice admiral nearly killed him, thus he really wasn't looking forward to a redo, but then again this man didn't seem to have any devil fruit powers the way his last vice admiral level opponent did. He wordlessly channeled his green acidic glow to his go-to melee weapons, his fingernails, in anticipation of the battle, Ebi no sum rot claws. False blades in lieu of real ones. Stainless commented, figuring that Soren used his acid to augment his ability to cut and scratch with his fingernails. You'll find that when dealing with a skilled swordsman that crutch won't do much for you. Soren swung a look towards his hands, both of them held in claw-like forms, before looking back up at Stainless. I've got a crutch for my crutch, he said before rushing forward directly at Stainless. The Vice Admiral shook his head and prepared to cleave into Soren's hands to separate them from his wrists if he happened to be dumb enough to go up against his sword to do so, but when he met Soren's claws with his katana the strangest thing happened. Soren began matching him stroke for stroke, taking every swing of his sword off of his hands. That made no sense. His haki would have allowed him to slice through normal flesh and blood like a cloud, and Soren's acid wouldn't be able to protect him at all because that had nothing to do with such a defense. I learned something about using Tekai Iron M while I was training the bit of Rokushiki techniques that I stole. Soren said as he continued to death duel with his hands against Stainless, that I can't use it and move my body at the same time. That was quite contradictory to what he was doing at the moment though, but I can harden parts of my body as long as I don't move what I want to harden a bit, like my hands. That's impossible. Stainless claimed as he clashed his sword against Soren's bare hands that he noticed had never moved out of their claw-handed forms that he had begun the battle with. He had been telling the truth. Nothing past his wrists happened to be moving an inch, as if his hands weren't real and were prosthetic and in fixed positions. That's a strict amount of muscle control that I can't see someone like you having the discipline to develop. Soren grinned at having impressed a vice admiral with something that he could do aside from his devil fruit powers. It's better than not adapting and getting killed because of it, don't you think? With Naruto G3 Marine Base main tower Spandine's office getting his entire western wall blown away with a cannon swow was startling enough, but then to see a strange man jump through the newly created hole and head right for him, Spandine almost fainted from the shock because he thought he was a dead man. Not to be, however, as Naruto merely made it over to him and prevented him from grabbing the Den Den Mushi that would alert the base to the trouble. Thank goodness all of the ruckus was taking place on the half of the base that was strictly operational, the side by the ocean. The barracks were all the way on the other side of the base, closer to the town. WW, who are you and what do you want with me? Spandine sputtered as he found his hand in Naruto's iron-like grip. The blonde merely moved the Den Den Mushi far out of the way of possibility for him to reach it and set off an alert for the entire place. You don't know who I am, Naruto said in a bit of disbelief. That was odd, because for the longest time Marines and world government representatives knew who he was without him having to say a word. Wasn't this guy supposed to be kind of important? Well, maybe it was better that he didn't know for once. Very few things were scarier than the unknown. That's not a big deal though. He so desperately wanted to break into his whole introduction spiel, but there wasn't any time for that. I've just got one question for you, answer it right and nothing bad'll happen at all. I'll let you go. Spandine just nodded frantically as Naruto's hand was now set firmly on top of his head. He'd just asked this brute a sweet-sounding lie and he'd be on his way. High-ranking government members didn't just cough up information so casually, but he wasn't really big on being physically tormented either, he was fragile. At that point, Naruto had been standing still for long enough to build up more natural energy on his own and his eyes not only took on the orange pigment of Sage Mode, the purple, ripple-patterned eyes of the Rinnegan took form. You're not going to do something stupid like lie to me, would you? Naruto's hand began to glow in an ethereal manner. I'm going to be reading your mind, so if you lie I'll know, and if I have to actually look for the real answer against your will I'll pull your soul out too, and that'll kill you. It wasn't even a matter of questioning Naruto's words as bluster because when the blonde started to pull his hand away from Spandine's scalp the man could actually feel a tug of sorts and quickly reapplied Naruto's hand to the top of his head tightly with both hands around his wrist. Alright. 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 What do you want? Where's your son Spandam? Some people want to talk to him and he went and put himself into hiding. Upon the utterance of his question, Naruto was rather impressed at how Spandine's resolve seemed to show itself. At least he was more inclined to protect his son than his son would have been to return the favor. Naruto had no doubt that Spandam would have sung whatever he wanted to know out in falsetto if he had been put in the same situation. You're not gonna tell me? He asked with a frown. I won't let a criminal get the location of Spandam. Spandine shouted, sending spittle all about. All the while tears of fear were pouring from his eyes. Do you know who you're dealing with? What you're doing? I know exactly who I'm dealing with. Naruto said honestly. If he didn't know those things then he wouldn't have even known where to go to do this in the first place. Duh, and I'll pretend that means something to me for about 10 more seconds. To his credit, Spandine remained silent and seemed to be praying or something. Wow, he was actually resigning himself to his fate. I'm gonna find out whether you tell me or not. Still nothing, even when Naruto started using that pulling feeling of him holding onto Spandine's soul like he was playing with a rubber band. With a sigh, Naruto pulled his only remaining card. He really didn't want to kill this man, he personally had nothing against him and something like that should have been saved for someone that did. If you just tell me it's not like you can't warn Spandam way in advance before something happens. You can't warn him of anything if you're dead, so how will he know what's coming then? From the look on Spandine's face and how his snot and tears instantly dried up it was evident that he hadn't even thought of such a thing. He almost looked like a child when he looked up at Naruto and answered him quickly, the G5 base in the new world. Yep, a big old wrinkly child. Naruto actually smiled at the man and lifted his hand off of his head, scaring Spandam until Naruto gave him a few pats on his crown. There, you're fine just like I said. I'm an honest guy, Datbayo. He then turned to leap back out of the hole that had been blown into the tower with a cannon when Spandine's voice stopped him. Wait. The old government agent said, still coming down off of his near brush with death via soul extraction, why didn't you just kill me if you would get the information no matter what happened? Because I don't kill people in cold blood. Naruto explained, turning around as his Sage Mode and Rinnegan faded. Yeah, I've killed a lot of people, but that was all in the middle of battle, and no one picks up a sword or a gun or anything without expecting to maybe die fighting. Killing someone that's already beaten though, I don't do that. I've never done that. I'll never do that. That's all. A loud crashing noise directed Naruto's attention to the tower that Soren had fired the cannon from. The entire roof was destroyed and the sounds of battle were quite clear to his ears. His jaw went somewhat slack though when he saw a circular, sickly green blade of energy suddenly cut through the tower from its interior. The spot that was cut melted the above and below portions of the walls that it touched and forced the unstable upper portion of the tower to fall over. Crap. Naruto immediately took off down the side of the main tower to reach Soren's. He had a pretty good idea of what had just happened and he was going to whack that idiot for being so stupid. I said as little damage as possible. Spandine just stared at the hole in the wall and let out a sigh of relief as he slumped back in his chair. He had to contact Spandam quickly, but even then everything should have been okay. His son was at G5. The Marines of that branch were troubled to say the least. Insane, merciless types that would openly torment a pirate that had already surrendered to them just for the of it. Probably the most ruthless of the enlisted Marines. And aside from that, the base was set smack dab in the middle of the New World portion of the Grand Line. Even getting there in the first place would be an insurmountable challenge for whoever was really intending to go there. No, even though he had given up the location of his son, he would still be fine once warned of the possible trouble coming. Who did that man think he was anyway? He didn't look all that tough, and if he was soft enough to spare his life because he was on some kick to not kill people in cold blood, he'd never get far enough in that living to do anything anyway. And yes, Spandine thought all of this while still shaking like a leaf in his chair and ignoring the wet spot on the front of his pants. On board the natural disaster, Naruto's clone up in the crow's nest opened its eyes and turned towards Nojiko, who was up there with him for company's sake and to keep an eye on the whole scene from a distance through the scope. Needless to say, she had been shaking her head at the stuff she had seen done to one tower and then to the other. She had a great view of it. "We need to go now," he said, getting Nojiko's attention. "Boss got what he needed. This isn't gonna stay as quiet as it's been for too much longer." "This has been quiet," Nojiko said with a raised eyebrow before standing up and shouting down to the veritable clone navy down on deck, "It's time to go. The mission's over, I think." She got a bunch of raucous responses from the hinged sailor Naruto clones as she made her way down to the helm where the main clone was hard at work. "Are you doing okay, clone Naruto-kun? Running low on chakra?" "Kind of," the main Naruto clone admitted with a bit of a strained smile. "I can't really let myself dispel yet though. Holding a transformation for so long on something this big is a serious drain." He should have used 2 clones to do the technique, but that was hindsight really. Nothing anyone could do about it now. "Well, you're doing a good job." Nojiko lured him before giving him a on the cheek, eliciting a series of boos and heckling from the other clones on deck about how that clone was being a big baby and about where theirs were supposed to be. Johnny swung down from where he had been dealing with the sails to try and prepare them for departure. Though he was still visibly injured from his sound thrashing at Kizaru's hands yesterday, he proved to be quite the trooper, as he wasn't going to lay in bed if he wasn't injured. Yosaku was still the only one that was still wounded to the point where he couldn't get out of bed, thus he remained in Mirai's medical bay. "We're on the move. Once we get into open water we can take these disguises off. It's not like they can catch us at that point." "True enough, I suppose," Nojiko agreed, looking around the deck for any of the rest of their actual crew. "Everyone's being lazy because Naruto-kun's clones are up here to seem like we're Marines, aren't they?" Johnny chuckled a bit and nodded as Nojiko rolled her eyes. "Well, yeah. Naruto Aniki does it to everyone else so much. Well, now they can get him back and let his clones do all of the work for once." He ducked a punch from one of the clones in question, and a glare from Nojiko got the doppelganger to stop trying to beat up Johnny. "Anyway, things should be good, right?" At that point, both Naruto and Soren appeared on the deck, both looking a bit battle-weary. Soren more so than Naruto though in comparison. "Comin' in, wow," Naruto said before directing his attention back towards the G3 base that they were sailing away from. "You should say that before you actually end up in the place you're getting yourself to, Naruto Aniki," Johnny pointed out uselessly just before a loud alarm was raised from the land that they were sailing away from at a fast pace. "What did you two do?" "I knocked out a vice admiral and put him through like 20 walls. I cut down a tower with a kick. My new Rankyaku storm leg variation is so cool. Didn't beat my vice admiral though. Uzumaki came and grabbed me. It can be as cool as you want it to be. You missed the kick. And we had to leave anyway. I don't need another crew member put in traction right now." "Bah, excuses." Interrupting the captain versus first mate pissing contest, Nojiko hit the both of them over their heads with the butts of her pistols. "You two fought vice admirals. I thought the whole point of this disguise crap was so you didn't have to fight anyone at all. Why didn't you just run to begin with?" Both of them stared at her blankly, wordlessly answering her question right there. I swear to God." By the time any of the Marines of the G3 base got to their ready posts and reached any working artillery, there was merely an orange ship with unique tree-like masts sailing away into the horizon. That night on board the natural disaster Naruto's quarters, both Fukasaku and Shima sat in front of Naruto on his bed as the boy they had known since the age of 15 sat before them looking quite serious at what he had just inquired of them. "Naruto-chan, Shima said, completely business-like in her tone, that's really what ya summoned us out here fair. Do ya really think that'd be the best idea? I know. There's a bunch of reasons why I shouldn't think about doing it at all. Naruto admitted in regards to the cryptic topic of their conversation, but I can at least ask him if nothing else. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. That's all there is to it. The worst thing he can do is say no and that'll be that. Are things really that serious that y'd consider this to be a solution? Fukasaku hopped up to Naruto and put a hand on his charge's leg as he sat cross-legged on his bed. Talk to us. Just how dangerous is this place? Naruto stood up from his bed and started pacing around. Aokiji nearly killed me in our fight. I keep getting lucky against Kizaru so that it never goes that far, and I keep hearing that there are even stronger people out there, that we haven't seen anything yet. Pa, there are tons of powerful people in the world. I'm just saying that Sage Mode isn't enough anymore. I might need more firepower. Then come home. Shima suggested. What are ya even doing out here to begin with? Ya did her thing, ya had some fun, ya saw things that no other shinobi ever saw before. Come home. For Naruto's sake, Fukasaku stepped in and tried to explain to his wife before she got too worked up. Dear, we both know that ain't an option for Naruto-chan. Not now at least. Right boy. There was a small hint of a smile on Naruto's face. No, it's not. I can't go back to the mountain again, Ma. Not now, not for good anyway. I like it out here. I love the people around me. And that's why I was asking if you guys thought it would be a good idea to go through with my idea. Shima didn't seem to like the idea of Naruto getting himself involved in another series of never-ending and potentially catastrophic situation, but she knew why he felt the way that he did. It was the same reason he seemed to have some drive and a fire back in his eyes again, and this is something you're serious about. Dead serious. Naruto said resolutely, I'm not cutting and running from them. It's not gonna happen like that again. I'm sticking it out with this crew for as long as they want me here. What kind of man would he be to have gathered them, painstakingly gotten them attached to him and to each other, and then just suddenly left one day? Not any kind of man he ever wanted to be. The world is way bigger than just the elemental nations. Both of the elderly toads looked at each other before turning back to Naruto as Fukasaku spoke. Get us to summon ya to Mount Myoboku when ya think it's time. We'll have the key to the Geto Mazo demonic statue of the outer path to try what ya need to do. And ya might as well bring crew to Naruto-chan. Shima instructed him. We don't ever get any new company up in our little place anymore. You've got it. Naruto said with a grin. Maybe it could be fun to show everyone the home of the toads, and hey, maybe a bit of the elemental nations too. Just for a bit, at least for background's sake, while he was taking care of his own business. We'll finish this mission and then I'll bring it up and see what they think. He reached down and gave the lady toad a hug before putting her back down on the bed. It was good seeing you guys again. Next time it won't be after 7 years, thank goodness. A bark of laughter sped from Naruto as the two summoned creatures disappeared in puffs of smoke, returning to the land from whence they came. With tranquil night silence back in his room for the first time since he summoned his non-human parental figures and beacons of advice, Naruto frowned and pulled up his shirt, gathering chakra so that the form of the seal that had been on his stomach for his entire life could be seen. Though now it was disjointed and uneven, signifying that it had been opened and that there was nothing left there other than the residual chakra of the seal's former tenant. I wonder if Kurama wants to hang out with me again for a bit. Naruto mused to himself as he flopped down on his bed and stared up at the ceiling. If I still know him even halfway, well, he's probably bored as in the Bijuu's Haven. Right after finishing up his little arrangement with CP9 and giving them the information they wanted, he'd have to prepare for a bit of a trip home. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys liked it. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like for more what ifs and support the author. See you guys in the next video.